The spatial anomaly registered on Stargate Command's deep space sensors exactly 3 seconds before the UNSC Infinity tore through the fabric of reality 12,000 kilometers above Earth's surface. In the SGC control room, 28 levels beneath Cheyenne Mountain, alarms shrieked as the massive energy signature bloomed across every monitoring station like a supernova condensed into a single point of impossible physics. Unscheduled spatial distortion, Sergeant Harriman's voice cut through the chaos. Energy output is off the scale, reading equivalent to a full gate activation multiplied by 1,000. General George Hammond descended the stairs from his office, a decades of military composure keeping his expression neutral, even as the numbers scrolling across the screens violated every law of physics he'd learned since taking command of Earth's most classified installation. Origin? High orbit, sir. Whatever it is, it's big. Harriman's fingers flew across his console. NORAD's tracking it now. Mass estimates are... General, they're saying it's over 5 kilometers long. Major Samantha Carter was already at her station, her astrophysicist's mind racing through possibilities even as her military training cataloged threats. It's not a Goa'uld signature. Energy dispersal pattern is completely different, more focused, almost surgical, and the residual radiation doesn't match any hyperdrive we've encountered. Could it be Asgard? Hammond asked, and though Thor's characteristic beaming technology had never produced readings like this. Negative, sir. Carter pulled up a visual feed from one of Earth's orbital satellites. The image resolved slowly, pixel by pixel, revealing a shape that made everyone in the control room fall silent. The vessel hung against the black of space like a predator, surveying new hunting grounds. Its hull stretched nearly 3.5 miles from bow to stern, a sleek arrowhead of gray-white armor, plating that caught Earth's sunlight and threw it back in sharp geometric patterns. Dozens of what looked like weapons batteries studded its surface alongside launching bays that could swallow Earth's F-302 fighters whole. Running lights pulsed along its flanks in unfamiliar configurations, and at its aft section, a massive engine assemblies glowed with contained energy that registered on SGC's sensors as something between an Aquata reactor and technology they'd never seen. Mother of God, someone whispered. Colonel Jack O'Neill arrived at a run, taking the stairs 3 at a time with Daniel Jackson and Teal'c close behind. He stopped at the tactical display, eyes narrowing at the ship dominating the feed. Please tell me that's ours. Unknown, Colonel, Hammond replied. But given that it just appeared out of nowhere above our planet, I'm inclined to be cautious. Indeed, Teal'c rumbled, studying the vessel with the tactical assessment of a warrior who'd spent a century serving Goa'uld system lords. The design is unlike any ship I have encountered. It does not bear the markings of any system lord, nor does it resemble Asgard or Takra construction. Daniel pushed his glasses up, squinting at the hull markings becoming visible as satellites adjusted their imaging. Jack, there's writing on the hull. It's English. I can see letters UNSC. UNSC. Carter pulled up enhanced imagery, her expression shifting from concern to confusion. United Nations Space Command? That's not any Earth designation I've ever heard of. And we've got incoming, Harriman announced. The vessel is launching smaller craft. Count is 12, 15, 20 fighters and what look like dropships. They're not approaching Earth. They're taking up defensive positions around the mothership. Hammond made his decision in the span of a heartbeat. Launch F-302S, Flight Squadron Alpha, intercept formation. Do not engage unless fired upon. Major Carter, I want you analyzing every scrap of data we're getting from that ship. Colonel O'Neill, SG-1 is on standby. If this turns into a first contact situation, you're our people. Just once, Jack muttered, checking his sidearm. I'd like aliens to call ahead. The F-302s launched from their hidden silos in the mountain, streaking upward through Earth's atmosphere on pillars of fire and Aquata-enhanced propulsion. Their pilots were Earth's best, trained in combat against Goa'uld death gliders and Anubis's advanced fighters, but nothing in their briefings had prepared them for the sight of the Infinity up close. Captain Lasky stood on Infinity's bridge, hands clasped behind his back as he studied the planet rotating slowly beneath them. Earth, unmistakably Earth, the same continental configurations, the same blue oceans, and the same moon hanging in the distance. But the tactical display told a different story. No orbital defense platforms, no UNSC shipyards at Luna or Mars, no MAX station networks, just a handful of satellites that his sensors officer had classified as primitive by 3 centuries. "Sit rep," Lasky ordered, his voice carrying the calm authority that had seen him through the Covenant War and the Didac crisis. Commander Sarah Palmer stepped up beside him, her Spartan-IV augmentations making her movements precisely controlled, despite the tension radiating from every line of her armored form. "We're definitely not in Kansas anymore, Captain. Navigation confirms 0 correlation with UNSC star charts. Slipspace coordinates are gibberish. Whatever that spatial anomaly was, it didn't just move us. It threw us somewhere completely off the map. The hyperdrive nav computer isn't any better," added Lieutenant Kai 125, one of the Star Wars specialists who'd integrated with Infinity's crew during the experimental cross-reality technology trials. "No hyperlanes, no familiar systems, nothing. If this is Earth, it's not our Earth." Roland, Infinity's smart AI, materialized on the holotank in his preferred avatar of a World War II naval officer. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface, concentrated in North America, Colorado region. The emission pattern is consistent with exotic matter manipulation, possibly some form of Einstein-Rosen bridge technology or—" "Incoming," Palmer interrupted. 20-plus craft launching from planetary surface. Small, if single or dual pilot configuration. Armed." She studied the tactical readout with a Spartan's practiced eye. "They're not moving to attack. Intercept vector. Cautious approach." Lasky watched the unknown fighters take up positions at a respectful distance. Whoever was flying them had training and discipline. "Hail them. All frequencies, all languages in our database." The response came faster than expected, crackling over comms in clear English with an unmistakable American accent. "Unidentified vessel. This is Captain Myers, United States Air Force, acting under authority of Stargate Command. You are in Earth orbital space without authorization. Identify yourself immediately and state your intentions. Stargate Command." Lasky's mind cataloged the term, finding no matches in UNSC databases. He gestured to comms. "Sure, open channel." He waited for the confirmation light, then spoke with the same straightforward honesty that had earned him his crew's loyalty. "Captain Myers, this is Captain Thomas Lasky of the UNSC Infinity. We mean no harm to Earth or her people. We appear to have encountered a spatial anomaly during a slipspace transition and have arrived at your location through means we don't fully understand. We're human, Captain. Same as you, and we'd very much like to talk to whoever's in charge down there." In the SGC control room, Hammond listened to the transmission with the careful attention of a man who'd negotiated with Goa'uld system lords and Asgard scientists. The voice was human, American even, and carried the weight of command. But the claims were extraordinary. "UNSC Infinity," Hammond responded personally, his Texas drawl lending gravity to every word. "This is Major General George Hammond, United States Air Force, Commanding Officer of Stargate Command. Your vessel represents a significant security concern, Captain Lasky. I'm prepared to discuss this situation, but I'll need more than words. Are you willing to send a delegation to the surface for face-to-face talks?" On Infinity's bridge, Lasky exchanged glances with Palmer. The Spartan commander's expression was unreadable behind her helmet, but her slight nod conveyed agreement. First contact protocols were clear. When meeting potentially hostile forces, demonstrate good faith but maintain tactical readiness. "General Hammond, I can have a delegation ready within the hour. I'll be coming personally, along with security personnel and scientific staff. But I'll be keeping Infinity on high alert. Nothing personal, just prudent given the circumstances." "Understood, Captain. We'll be doing the same. Transmitting coordinates for a landing site now." "Welcome to Earth, Captain Lasky, whichever Earth this turns out to be." As the channel closed, Daniel looked at Jack with poorly concealed excitement. "Did you hear that? UNSC, slipspace. They're talking about human space travel like it's routine. Jack, what if they're from some alternate timeline where Earth developed differently?" What if they're lying? Jack countered, though his tone suggested he was playing devil's advocate more than expressing real doubt. What if this is some elaborate Goa'uld trick? Carter shook her head, still analyzing the data streaming from her console. Sir, the energy signatures from their engines alone represent technology decades beyond anything we've reverse engineered from the Goa'uld. If this is a trick, it's the most sophisticated one we've ever seen. Teal'c's staff weapon remained steady in his grip. Then we shall greet them as warriors meeting warriors, with respect, but with vigilance. Hammond turned to SG-1, his decision made. Colonel, assemble your team. Full tactical gear. When Captain Lasky arrives, I want Earth's finest standing ready. If these people are truly human and truly lost, we'll help them. But if this is a threat, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Understood, sir. Jack's expression shifted to the focused intensity that made him one of Earth's most effective field commanders. Carter, bring your doohickey detector. Daniel, you have to brush up on your welcome wagon speech. Teal'c, bring the intimidating. SG-1, we've got a first contact to make. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. Indeed, the Pelican dropship descended through Earth's atmosphere with Spartan precision, its hull heating from friction as it cut through the sky over Colorado. Inside the troop bay, Captain Lasky sat across from Commander Palmer and 4 fully armed Spartan-IVs, their MJOLNIR armor gleaming under the dropship's interior lights. Beside them, Dr. Glassman reviewed sensor data on a datapad, while Lieutenant Kai 125 checked the power cells on his DC-15A blaster rifle, a weapon that would certainly raise questions. Our first contact with an alternate Earth, Glassman muttered, equal parts fascinated and nervous. The scientific implications alone are staggering. If they have comparable technology, we might be able to— Stay focused, Doctor, Lasky interrupted gently. First we establish trust, then we talk science. He looked at Palmer. Commander, your Spartans are for show of capability, not aggression. We're guests here, potentially unwelcome ones. Palmer's helmet tilted slightly. Understood, sir. We'll keep it friendly, but if things go sideways, then you do what Spartans do best. Lasky allowed himself a slight smile. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. The Pelican touched down on the tarmac outside Cheyenne Mountain with barely a tremor, its landing struts absorbing the impact with hydraulic efficiency. The rear ramp lowered, out revealing the Colorado sunset and a very particular welcoming committee. SG-1 stood in formation 20 meters from the dropship, weapons held at ready positions that managed to be both non-threatening and clearly prepared. Behind them, Air Force security personnel had established a perimeter, and in the distance, the mountain itself loomed like a sentinel guarding secrets. Captain Lasky descended the ramp first, his UNSC officer's uniform immaculate, despite the journey across realities. He was younger than Hammond had expected, mid-30s perhaps, with the kind of face that had seen combat but hadn't let it harden into cynicism. Behind him came the Spartans, and Jack O'Neill's eyebrows rose despite his best efforts at maintaining composure. The armored soldiers stood over 7 feet tall in their powered armor, moving with a fluid grace that seemed impossible for something so massive. Their helmets were faceless, except for golden visors that reflected the sunset like mirrors. Weapons, some recognizable as advanced firearms, others completely alien, were mag-locked to their armor in positions that allowed for instant deployment. Well, Jack said quietly to Daniel, I'm officially jealous of their armor. Lasky approached with measured steps, stopping at a respectful distance. His hand moved not to a weapon but to his chest in what might have been a salute or gesture of peace. General Hammond, Colonel O'Neill, thank you for agreeing to meet us. Hammond stepped forward, his posture military straight. Captain Lasky, before we proceed further, I need to establish some basic facts. You claim to be human. You claim to be from Earth. But the Earth we know doesn't have ships like yours or soldiers like— He gestured to the Spartans. Them. So help me understand what we're dealing with here. Lasky took a breath, clearly organizing his thoughts for maximum clarity. General, in our reality, humanity has been exploring and colonizing space for over 500 years. We fought a 30-year war against an alien alliance called the Covenant. Religious zealots who wanted to wipe us out for interfering with their god's legacy. We won that war, barely, with the help of technology left behind by an ancient race called the Forerunners. He paused, watching their faces. And recently, we've begun integrating technology from what we call a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Shows the experimental hyperdrive integration on Infinity was supposed to enhance our slip space capabilities. Instead, it intersected with some kind of massive spatial anomaly and threw us here, to your Earth. Daniel's eyes had gone wide behind his glasses. Forerunners, an ancient race that left technology behind. Captain, do you have any examples of their writing, their language? Any records of what they look like or... Daniel, Jack interrupted gently. Baby steps. Carter was staring at the Spartans with undisguised scientific curiosity. Captain, those soldiers, are they enhanced, genetically, mechanically? Commander Palmer's helmet retracted with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a woman in her 30s with sharp features and sharper eyes. Both, Major. Spartan-IVs are augmented at the genetic and muscular level, much then equipped with MJOLNIR-powered assault armor, were designed for operations against threats that would kill normal soldiers. Her gaze shifted to Teal'c, taking in his height, his golden Jaffa symbol, his staff weapon. Though I'm guessing you folks have your own versions of enhanced. Teal'c inclined his head with something approaching respect. I am Jaffa, once a warrior slave of the Goa'uld false gods, now free and allied with the Tauri, the humans of Earth. Your armor is impressive, Commander Palmer. I would be honored to test its capabilities in training, should time permit. A slight smile crossed Palmer's face. I think I'd like that. Hammond raised a hand before the conversation could veer further off track. Captain Lasky, you're claiming to be from an alternate reality where humanity won a war against aliens using ancient technology. That's a lot to process. But before we get into the metaphysics of parallel universes, I need to know, are you a threat to this Earth? Lasky met his eyes without hesitation. No, sir. We're stranded, possibly permanently. We need to understand where we are, and if there's any way to get home. But we're not conquerors, General. We're explorers and defenders. If anything, we'd like to help, assuming you'll have us. Help with what? Jack asked, his tone carefully neutral. Dr. Glassman stepped forward, unable to contain himself any longer. General, Captain Lasky mentioned you have something called Stargate Command. The energy signature we detected from Colorado. It's consistent with exotic matter manipulation on a scale that suggests stable wormhole generation. Are you telling me you have functional faster-than-light travel through artificially created Einstein-Rosen bridges? Carter and Glassman locked eyes, and something approaching mutual recognition passed between them. The look of scientists who'd just found someone who spoke their language. Dr. Glassman, Carter said slowly, I think you and I need to have a very long conversation about what the Stargate actually is. But yes, we have functional wormhole travel to thousands of planets across the galaxy. Glassman looked like someone had just told him Christmas arrived early. Thousands? Stable? Repeatable? Captain, we need to see this. The Forerunner portals we've studied are impressive, but if they've achieved consistent, reliable wormhole technology, which brings us to the question, Hammond interrupted, his command voice cutting through the scientific enthusiasm, of what happens next. Captain Lasky, you've arrived at Earth during a time of war. We're fighting an enemy called the Goa'uld, parasitic aliens who pose as gods and enslave entire civilizations. We have allies, the Asgard, the Tok'ra, the Free Jaffa, but we're badly outnumbered and outgunned. Your ship represents a level of military capability that could change the balance of power in this galaxy, which means every faction with intelligence networks is going to know you're here very soon, and most of them are going to want what you have. Lasky's expression hardened with understanding. You're saying we just painted a target on ourselves? And on Earth, Hammond confirmed. So here's what I propose. You and your senior staff come inside. We'll brief you on the strategic situation, show you what the Stargate is and how it works, and figure out if there's any common ground between your people and ours. Your ship stays in orbit under your command, and we keep this as quiet as possible for as long as we can. But Captain, and I need you to understand this, if your presence here puts Earth at risk, I will take whatever measures necessary to protect my planet. Are we clear? Lasky didn't flinch from the implied threat. If anything, he seemed to respect it. Crystal clear, General. And for what it's worth, if the situation were reversed, I'd say exactly the same thing. Infinity will maintain defensive posture only. Do you have my word? Then welcome to Stargate Command, Captain. Hammond gestured toward the mountain entrance. We have 28 levels of explanations waiting for you. Colonel O'Neill will escort you inside. Try not to be too shocked by what you see. Jack stepped forward with his characteristic smirk. Fair warning, we've got a giant alien ring that makes wormholes to other planets. We're fighting snake parasites that think they're gods. And our best ally is a race of little gray aliens who are slowly going extinct through bad cloning practices. Your weird alternate reality shtick is actually pretty tame by our standards. As SG-1 led the UNSC delegation toward the mountain entrance, Palmer leaned close to Lasky and whispered, Sir, did he just say snake parasites who think they're gods? I heard it too. Commander. This is going to be weird, isn't it? Lasky watched the massive blast doors of Cheyenne Mountain grind open, revealing the tunnel beyond. Commander, we just fell through a hole in reality into an alternate universe where Earth fights space pharaohs with a magic ring. Weird doesn't even begin to cover it. Behind them, the sun set over Colorado, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. And 12,000 kilometers above, the UNSC Infinity maintained its vigil, a warship from another reality standing guard over an Earth that was both familiar and utterly alien. In the shadows of deep space, sensors that served a very different master detected the massive energy signature and began calculating vectors, weapons yields, and the strategic value of a prize unlike any the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years. Anubis had noticed, and Anubis was interested. The elevator descended into Cheyenne Mountain's depths with a pneumatic hiss that reminded Lasky uncomfortably of Covenant dropship deployments. 28 levels underground, General Hammond had said. In the UNSC, that kind of fortification usually meant either critical command infrastructure or something humanity desperately wanted to keep secret from the Covenant. Given that the war was over in his reality, Lasky suspected the latter. Commander Palmer stood at parade rest beside him, her helmet retracted but her posture radiating controlled readiness. The 4 Spartan-IVs filling the elevator's remaining space made the confined area feel smaller than it was, their MJOLNIR armor reflecting the sterile lighting in muted grays and golds. Dr. Glassman clutched his datapad like a lifeline, it occasionally muttering calculations under his breath. Lieutenant Kai 125 had wisely left his blaster rifle mag-locked to his back, though Lasky noticed the man's hand never strayed far from the DC-15S pistol at his hip. Colonel O'Neill stood opposite them with the casual alertness of a predator pretending to be relaxed. His P-90 hung from a tactical sling across his chest, and his eyes tracked every movement the Spartans made with the kind of assessment that came from decades of combat experience. Beside him, Major Carter watched the floor indicator with scientific focus, occasionally glancing at Glassman's datapad with poorly concealed curiosity. Dr. Jackson kept adjusting his glasses and opening his mouth as if to ask questions, then apparently thinking better of it. Teal simply stood like a stone monolith, his staff weapon planted firmly on the elevator floor, his expression unreadable. So, Jack said into the silence, the Covenant. Religious zealots who wanted to wipe you out. We've got those too. The Ori, ascended beings from another galaxy who literally get more powerful when people worship them. They're currently trying to convert or kill everyone in the Milky Way. You folks have anything like that in your playbook? Lasky considered the question. The Covenant believed the Forerunners, the ancient race I mentioned, had achieved transcendence through activation of massive weapons arrays called halos. They wanted to follow that same path. Problem was, the halos don't cause transcendence. They kill all sentient life in the galaxy to starve an all-consuming parasite called the Flood. Daniel's eyes went wide. Or they wanted to commit galactic genocide because they misunderstood their own scripture? For 30 years, Palmer confirmed grimly, nearly wiped us out before we convinced some of them they'd been lied to by their prophets. The war ended when we helped their warriors, the Sangheili, see the truth. Most of them, anyway. Indeed, Teal'c rumbled, and something in his tone suggested he understood that kind of revelation on a deeply personal level. I, too, once served those I believed were gods. The Goa'uld system lords held my people enslaved through false divinity and superior technology. It was only through the Tauri, through this world's SG-1, that I learned the truth and joined the rebellion. Palmer studied the Jaffa with renewed interest. You fought your former masters? I have killed many who once commanded me, Teal'c said simply. It is the burden and honor of freedom. The elevator chimed, interrupting the moment. The doors slid open to reveal a corridor of reinforced concrete and steel that could have been any military installation in the UNSC, except for the armed guards at every checkpoint and the palpable sense that something unprecedented waited ahead. Hammond stood waiting, his hands clasped behind his back. Captain Lasky, before we proceed to the gate room, I want to establish some ground rules. What you're about to see is Earth's most closely guarded secret. In our reality, public knowledge of alien life and the Stargate network would cause worldwide panic and possibly societal collapse. We operate with the authorization of the President and a handful of allied nations, but the vast majority of humanity has no idea we exist. Lasky nodded slowly. Could the UNSC maintain similar protocols regarding Forerunner technology and certain aspects of the Covenant War? Operational security is something we understand, General. Good. Second rule. The Stargate connects to thousands of worlds, many of them hostile. The Goa'uld control a significant portion of the galaxy through fear, slavery, and overwhelming force. They will see your ship as either a prize to be claimed or a threat to be destroyed. Possibly both. Until we understand the strategic implications of your arrival, information about Infinity stays compartmentalized. Agreed, Lasky said. My crew has already been briefed to maintain communications discipline. Infinity's running silent except for necessary defensive scans. Hammond's expression softened slightly. Then welcome to Stargate Command, Captain. Colonel, if you'd escort our guests to the control room? They moved through corridors that reminded Lasky of the Autumn's interior. All function, minimal decoration, every surface designed for durability over aesthetics. Personnel in Air Force uniforms moved with purpose, some stopping to stare openly at the Spartans before remembering themselves and hurrying along. At several intersections, Lasky spotted weapon lockers and defensive positions that suggested this facility expected to be boarded. You've fought inside this mountain, Palmer observed, her Spartan training picking up on the same tactical details Lasky noticed. Twice, Jack confirmed. Goa'uld invasion forces both times. One of them was Anubis's supersoldiers, Kull warriors. Damn near impervious to energy weapons, took a special weapon Carter designed to put them down. And the other time was replicators, but that's a whole different nightmare we can brief you on later. Replicators? Glassman perked up despite his nervousness. Self-replicating technology? We've theorized about von Neumann machines, but the energy requirements alone would be astronomical, Carter finished, glancing back at him with a slight smile. They consume any technology they encounter and use it to create more of themselves. The Asgard have been fighting them for years, nearly lost that war several times. The Asgard being the little gray aliens Colonel O'Neill mentioned? Kai-125 asked. Supreme Commander Thor and his people, Teal'c confirmed, the most technologically advanced race in this galaxy, save for the ancients themselves. And they have been allies to the Tauri since we proved ourselves worthy of their respect. They rounded a final corner and emerged onto a platform overlooking what could only be the Stargate command control room. Lasky stopped, his breath catching despite years of military composure. Below them, the gate room stretched out in utilitarian gray concrete, but the centerpiece made everything else irrelevant. The Stargate itself stood 7 meters tall, a ring of metal, or something that looked like metal, inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift in the light. 9 chevrons marked its edge at regular intervals, currently dark and inactive. The inner ring appeared to float independently from the outer structure, suggesting some kind of magnetic suspension or technology Lasky couldn't immediately identify. My God, Glassman breathed, his datapad forgotten as he stared at the artifact. Captain, the energy requirements to stabilize a wormhole would be immense. The exotic matter alone is generated by the gate itself, Carter said, joining them at the observation window. Her voice carried the satisfaction of someone who'd spent years unraveling an impossible puzzle. The Stargates were built by a race called the Ancients, the first evolution of humanity in this galaxy. They seeded the network millions of years ago, creating a transportation system connecting thousands of worlds. Each gate can establish a stable wormhole to any other gate in the network using a 7-symbol address, 6 spatial coordinates, and a point of origin. Daniel stepped up beside her, his archaeologist's enthusiasm evident. The symbols represent constellations as viewed from Earth. The ancients used them as a coordinate system. We dial specific combinations to reach specific planets. Lasky studied the gate with the same analytical focus he'd applied to understanding Forerunner installations. How long does the wormhole remain stable? 38 minutes maximum, Carter replied. After that, it automatically disconnects. The trip itself is instantaneous. You step through on Earth and emerge on another planet light years away in the time it takes to walk through a doorway. Instantaneous travel across interstellar distances, Glassman murmured, his fingers flying across his datapad. No time dilation, no relativistic effects. Captain, if we could understand the principles behind this, integrate it with slipspace technology. One step at a time, Doctor, Lasky cautioned, and though his own mind was racing with the same possibilities. The Forerunners had built portal technology, but nothing with the apparent range and reliability of what he was seeing. General Hammond, you said thousands of gates. How many exactly? Hammond descended to the control room floor, gesturing for them to follow. Our database currently lists over 7,000 addresses. We've explored a fraction of them. Some lead to abandoned worlds, some to thriving civilizations, some to Goa'uld-controlled territories we avoid when possible. Each mission is a calculated risk. They descended the stairs to the control room floor, where Sergeant Harriman manned his station with practiced efficiency. The young man's eyes widened at the sight of the Spartans, but he maintained his composure. Years of working with SG when apparently having raised his threshold for the unusual. Sergeant, Hammond ordered, dial up P3X234. Let's give our guests a demonstration. Yes, sir. Harriman's hands moved across his console, inputting commands. Chevron 1 encoded. The Stargate burst into life with a sound like rolling thunder. The first chevron lit up with brilliant orange light, and the inner ring began to rotate with surprising speed. Each chevron locked with a resonant clang that Lasky felt in his chest, the sound echoing through the concrete chamber like the tolling of some ancient bell. Chevron 2 encoded. Palmer's hand had unconsciously moved to her sidearm, her Spartan instincts responding to the massive energy buildup that even Lasky could feel raising the hairs on his arms. The other Spartans shifted subtly into defensive positions, their training warring with their orders to remain non-threatening. Stand down, Commander, Lasky said quietly. This is what we came to see. Chevron 3 encoded. Daniel leaned closer to Kai 125, apparently having noticed the lieutenant's unusual weapon. That's not UNSC standard issue, is it? The design is completely different. Kai glanced at the blaster rifle on his back. DC-15A, standard clone trooper weapon from the Grand Army of the Republic. Long story involving technology exchange and an experimental joint reality research initiative. Captain Lasky can explain better than I can. Chevron 4 encoded. You're saying you've made contact with another universe entirely? Daniel's voice pitched upward with barely contained excitement. In not just alternate timelines, but completely separate realities with different physics? Do you have any idea what the archaeological implications? Chevron 5 encoded. Carter was watching her instruments with rapt attention. Energy buildup is following normal parameters, but I'm getting unusual readings from the gate itself. It's like it's resonating with something. She looked at Glassman's datapad, which was displaying frantic cascades of data. Doctor, are you scanning with active sensors? Glassman looked up guiltily. Just passive electromagnetic monitoring. I wouldn't dream of interfering with an active wormhole establishment, but the energy signatures are incredible. I'm reading what looks like controlled matter-antimatter annihilation at scales that should be impossible to contain. Chevron 6 encoded. The gate's rotation accelerated, the inner ring becoming a blur of motion. Energy crackled along the metal surface, creating patterns that reminded Lasky uncomfortably of the way Forerunner technology activated, as if the gate itself were waking from a long sleep. Chevron 7 locked, The event horizon exploded outward from the Stargate in a cascade of liquid-like energy that rushed forward 20 feet before snapping back into a vertical pool of shimmering blue light. The Kawoosh, Jack had called it, an unstable vortex that disintegrated anything in its path before settling into stable wormhole configuration. The surface rippled like disturbed water. But Lasky's sensors registered it as something far stranger than any liquid. Wormhole established, Harriman reported. Receiving IDC from P3X-234. SG-3 is returning from their archaeological survey. 4 figures emerged from the event horizon like divers surfacing from impossible depths. They wore the same tactical gear as SG-1, their weapons held ready but not aggressive. Their leader, a Marine colonel by his insignia, nodded to Hammond before his eyes found the Spartans and went wide. "General," the colonel said carefully, "we weren't expecting guests." "Unexpected arrivals, Colonel Reynolds. How was the mission?" "Ruins were pre-Goa'uld, possibly ancient in origin. Dr. Jordan thinks we might have found another ZPM charging station, but it'll take weeks to excavate properly." Reynolds kept glancing at Palmer, clearly trying to reconcile the armored figure with anything in his experience. "Should I come back later?" "That won't be necessary. Dismissed, Colonel. Good work." SG-3 filed out, though Lasky noticed several backward glances at the Spartans. Word would spread through the base fast. SGC had new visitors, and they looked like something out of science fiction. The irony wasn't lost on him. "As you can see," Hammond said as the Stargate disengaged with a whoosh of collapsing energy, "the gate allows us to conduct operations across the galaxy. Exploration, scientific research, diplomatic missions, tactical strikes against Goa'uld targets. Every team that goes through risks not coming back. But the intelligence we gather, the alliances we forge, the ancient technology we recover, it's worth the cost." Lasky understood that calculus, and he'd sent Marines through hot landing zones knowing some wouldn't return. The mission always came first. "You mentioned the Goa'uld control most of the galaxy. What kind of force structure are we talking about?" Jack's expression turned grim. "The system lords, the top-tier Goa'uld, each command fleets of motherships. Hataks, we call them. Pyramid ships, heavily armed, shields that can take a pounding. Each system lord has hundreds of them, plus support craft, orbital weapons platforms, and ground forces numbering in the millions. They've been fighting each other for supremacy for thousands of years. But they'll unify fast if they see a common threat," Carter added. When Anubis returned with ancient enhanced technology, several system lords formed temporary alliances to counter him. It didn't last, but it showed they can work together when motivated. Teal's voice carried the weight of personal experience. "The Goa'uld are cunning, ruthless, and possess technology far beyond what the Tauri possessed before the Stargate program began. They see humanity as either slaves or hosts for their symbiotes. Your arrival, Captain Lasky, will be seen as both opportunity and threat." Palmer crossed her arms, her armored form somehow making the gesture more imposing. "General Hammond, we appreciate the briefing, but let's talk strategy. You're worried our ship will attract attention. What's your assessment of our defensive capabilities versus these Goa'uld motherships?" Hammond gestured to Carter, yielding the floor to his chief scientist and tactical analyst. Carter pulled up a holographic display, the technology clearly reverse-engineered from alien sources, showing a wireframe image of a Goa'uld Hatak. A standard Hatak is roughly 600 meters in diameter. Pyramid configuration. Primary weapons are staff cannons, plasma-based energy weapons with yields in the low kiloton range. They also carry complements of death gliders and Al-Kesh bombers. Shields can withstand sustained bombardment from multiple ships, though they have weaknesses we've learned to exploit. She pulled up another image, a sleeker, more menacing vessel. This is Anubis's mothership. He's the current primary threat, half-ascended Goa'uld with knowledge the others don't possess. His ship is 3 times the size of a standard Hatak and packs weapons that can destroy other Goa'uld vessels in seconds. He's also developed Cull warriors, super soldiers in armor that makes your Spartans look lightly equipped, at least in terms of defensive capability. Glassman had been furiously calculating on his datapad. "Captain, against the standard Hataks, Infinity would have overwhelming superiority. Our max alone could punch through their shields, and our point defense would handle their fighters. But this Anubis vessel? He frowned at the numbers. If his weapons are ancient-derived, they might be able to penetrate our shields. We'd win, but we'd take damage. And if he brought friends? Jack asked pointedly. Then we'd have problems, Lasky admitted. Infinity's designed for extended fleet engagements. But we're one ship. If the Goa'uld can field hundreds of motherships, numbers eventually overwhelm quality, which is why we need to keep your presence quiet for as long as possible, Hammond said. Give us time to assess the strategic situation, determine if there's a way to get you home, and prepare for the inevitable moment when the Goa'uld learn Earth has acquired a significant new asset. A klaxon suddenly blared through the control room, red lights flashing along the walls. Harriman's hands flew across his console, his expression shifting from routine to alarm. General, unscheduled off-world activation. It's not one of our scheduled returns. Everyone's weapons came up in practiced unison. The Spartans moved to flank Lasky and Glassman, their armor systems humming to active status. Teal's staff weapon powered on with a distinctive charge. Jack's P-90 pointed steadily at the Stargate as it began its dialing sequence. "Close the iris," Hammond ordered. A metallic barrier slammed across the gate's surface 3 micrometers from the event horizon, close enough that anything materializing would be destroyed at the molecular level upon impact. Lasky had seen Covenant energy shields and UNSC defensive barriers, but the brutal simplicity of the iris was somehow more impressive. "Receiving IDC," Harriman reported, tension bleeding from his voice. "It's the Takra. They're requesting permission to come through." Hammond exchanged glances with SG-1. Jack lowered his weapon fractionally. "The Takra don't usually drop by without calling ahead. This should be interesting." "Open the iris," Hammond commanded, "but keep security teams on standby." The iris retracted, revealing the shimmering event horizon once more. A single figure stepped through, humanoid, wearing robes that seemed to shift between colors, their eyes glowing briefly with an inner light that Lasky recognized as distinctly not human. The Takra representative stopped at the base of the ramp, their eyes scanning the room before settling on the Spartans with visible surprise. When they spoke, their voice had an odd dual-tone quality, as if two people spoke in harmony. "General Hammond, I am Malik of the Takra. Our intelligence network has detected an unusual energy signature in Earth orbit, a vessel of unknown origin and unprecedented capabilities. We have come to investigate and to warn you." The glowing eyes fixed on Lasky with unnerving intensity. "The system lords have also detected this vessel. Anubis is already moving to claim it, and he is bringing his entire fleet." The control room fell silent except for the quiet hum of equipment and the soft ripple of the Stargate's event horizon. Lasky met Hammond's eyes across the room, seeing the same calculation he'd made 100 times during the Covenant War. "The enemy knows. The clock is ticking. Decisions have to be made now." "General," Lasky said quietly, "I think we need to have that strategic discussion sooner rather than later." Hammond nodded grimly. "Agreed. Sergeant, stand down from alert status, but keep the security teams ready. Colonel O'Neill, get the Takra settled in the briefing room. Captain Lasky, it seems our timeline just accelerated. Let's figure out how to keep your ship and Earth from becoming Anubis's newest prize." As the Stargate shut down and personnel began moving with urgent purpose, Palmer leaned close to Lasky and whispered, "Sir, this is starting to feel a lot like the war." "That's because it is, Commander," Lasky replied, watching the Takra converse quietly with Daniel. "Just a different enemy in a different galaxy. But the mission's the same. Protect humanity and survive long enough to get our people home." Above them, 12,000 kilometers into the void, the UNSC Infinity sensors detected multiple hyperspace windows opening at the edge of the solar system. Large vessels, many of them, moving inward toward Earth with the deliberate pace of a fleet assembling for battle. And on the bridge, Roland materialized in his holotank with an expression far more serious than his usual demeanor. "Captain," the AI transmitted on secure channels, "we've got company. Hostiles inbound. Recommend we go to combat alert immediately." The war had come to find them. The briefing room felt smaller than it should have, with 7 Spartans in full MJOLNIR armor standing along the walls. Lasky sat across from General Hammond at the conference table, with Commander Palmer at his right and Dr. Glassman furiously taking notes on his left. SG-1 occupied the opposite side, while Malik of the Tok'ra stood at the head of the table, a holographic projection displaying the tactical situation with uncomfortable clarity. 12 red markers indicated Goa'uld vessels at the solar system's edge. They weren't moving. Yet. Just sitting there in a holding pattern that any military commander would recognize as a prelude to either negotiation or overwhelming assault. Anubis doesn't typically show restraint, Jack observed, so studying the display with the focused intensity that made him one of Earth's most dangerous field operators. He's got us outnumbered 12-1 and he's just waiting. That's not his style. Malik's eyes flashed briefly, the symbiote communicating with its host before they spoke in that distinctive dual voice. Anubis is many things, but he is not reckless. He detected the energy signature when your vessel arrived, Captain Lasky, but he does not yet know what you are or what capabilities you possess. He is gathering intelligence before committing to action. Smart, Palmer muttered. That's what I do against an unknown contact. Roland's avatar shimmered into existence on the conference table's holographic projector, in his World War II officer's uniform looking distinctly out of place among the military personnel from 3 different realities. Captain, I've completed analysis of the hostile vessels based on SGC's database. Configuration matches what they call Hatak-class motherships. 11 of them. The 12th is significantly larger and emitting energy signatures consistent with the enhanced technology Major Carter described. That's Anubis's flagship. Carter leaned forward, studying the holographic representation with professional interest. Roland, that's your AI's name? Your ship has an artificial intelligence? Smart AI, technically, Glassman explained, unable to resist the opportunity to discuss his specialty. Neural mapped from human donors, capable of independent thought, tactical analysis, and when managing ship systems that would require hundreds of human operators. Roland's been with Infinity since her commissioning. Extraordinary, Carter breathed. We've encountered AI before. The ancients created artificial intelligences, and the Asgard use advanced computer systems, but nothing quite like what you're describing. A true sentient machine intelligence operating a warship. I prefer digitally actualized person, Major, Roland interjected with a slight smile. But I appreciate the professional interest. And speaking of professional concerns, Captain, those Goa'uld ships have been running active scans for the past 17 minutes. They're trying to penetrate our stealth systems. Can they? Hammond asked sharply. Not with current sensor technology, Roland replied. Our ablative coding and emission control systems were designed to hide us from Covenant sensors, which are considerably more sophisticated than what I'm seeing from the Goa'uld. But they know we're here. They just can't get detailed readings on our capabilities. Teal'c rose from his seat, approaching the holographic display with the measured grace of a warrior assessing a battlefield. Anubis will not wait indefinitely. If he cannot determine your strength through observation, he will test it through combat. He has done this before when encountering new technology. Then we need to establish defensive coordination, Lasky said, shifting into the tactical mindset that had seen him through fleet engagements against overwhelming Covenant forces. General Hammond, what assets do you have available for orbital defense? Hammond's expression turned grim. Limited. The Prometheus, our first human-built capital ship, was destroyed 6 months ago. We've been developing the Daedalus class BC-304S, but the first vessel won't be ready for another year. We have F-302 fighter squadrons stationed here and at Area 51, but against Hataks, he didn't need to finish the sentence. You've been fighting this war with almost no orbital capability? Palmer's voice carried disbelief mixed with respect. How the hell are you still alive? The Stargate, Daniel said quietly. We don't fight them ship to ship. We can't. We use the gate to hit targets they don't expect, gather intelligence, form alliances, and occasionally acquire technology that levels the playing field. Guerrilla warfare on an interstellar scale. Jack nodded. We're really good at being the underdog. It's kind of our thing. Lasky understood the strategy. He'd employed similar tactics during the early Covenant War when UNSC forces were outmatched in every engagement. Hit and run, gather intelligence, survive until you could develop a counter. But orbital defense required ships, and these people had none. "Roland," Lasky ordered, "bring up Infinity's tactical status." The holographic display shifted, replacing the Goa'uld fleet with a wireframe representation of the UNSC Infinity. Statistics scrolled alongside the image: displacement, armament, shield strength, fighter complement. Carter's eyes widened as she absorbed the numbers. 5.7 kilometers, she murmured. That's almost 4 miles long. "Captain, your ship is nearly 10 times the size of a Hatak, and considerably better armed," Roland added with a note of pride. 4 Series 8 MACs, magnetic accelerator cannons, firing projectiles at 4% light speed with yields measured in megatons per round. 3,000 Howler missiles with variable warheads. Mark II 5.5 one-point defense systems capable of tracking and eliminating thousands of targets simultaneously. Energy projectors, reverse-engineered from Forerunner technology that can cut through most known shielding. And experimental hyperdrive/slipspace hybrid engines that, unfortunate dimensional displacement aside, give us faster-than-light capability. Malik had gone very still, the Takra symbiote and host clearly communicating in rapid internal dialogue. This vessel could engage Anubis's flagship directly, perhaps even destroy it. "Maybe," Lasky cautioned, "but you said he has an entire fleet. Infinity's powerful, but we're one ship against 12. If they coordinate their attack, concentrate fire on our shields, they'll eventually break through. And we don't have repair facilities here. No support fleet, no resupply. Every hit we take is permanent damage." "Which brings us to the strategic question," Hammond said. "What does Anubis want? Is he here to destroy your ship, capture it, or simply drive you away from Earth?" "He wants the ship intact," Malik replied with certainty. "Anubis's entire strategy revolves around acquiring ancient technology and knowledge. Your vessel, Captain, represents technology from another reality entirely. He would see it as the ultimate prize, proof that travel between universes is possible, with access to sciences his rivals cannot counter, and a warship powerful enough to crush any system lord who opposes him." "So he'll try negotiation first," Jack predicted. "Show up with overwhelming force, offer Lasky some kind of deal, and if that doesn't work, he'll try to disable the ship without destroying it." Carter nodded agreement. "It's consistent with his pattern. When he discovered the ancient outpost in Antarctica, he tried to negotiate with us before resorting to force. He's arrogant, but he's not stupid." Lasky exchanged glances with Palmer. The Spartan commander's expression was unreadable behind her faceplate, but he knew what she was thinking, the same thing he was. Every engagement with the Covenant had taught them that negotiations from a position of weakness ended badly. "Or then we need to not be in a position of weakness," Lasky said. "General Hammond, I need to understand your command structure. Who makes the call on orbital defense of Earth? In a crisis situation, I do, with authorization from the President and consultation with our allies. The Asgard specifically. Supreme Commander Thor has defended Earth before against System Lord attacks. Can you contact him?" Hammond nodded to Harriman, who'd been quietly monitoring communications from his station in the corner. "Sergeant, send a subspace message to the Asgard. Priority Alpha. Tell Thor we have a situation that requires his immediate attention." "Yes, sir." Harriman's fingers moved across his console. "Message sent. Based on previous response times, we should hear back within the hour." A klaxon blared before he finished speaking. Roland's avatar flickered urgently. "Captain, the Goa'uld fleet is moving. All vessels accelerating to attack speed. Vector directly toward Earth. Estimate contact in 47 minutes at current velocity." "So much for negotiation," Jack muttered, already rising from his seat. Hammond was on his feet, command authority radiating from every word. "Battle stations. Sergeant, recall all SG teams immediately. Colonel O'Neill, get your team geared up. Major Carter, I want you coordinating with Captain Lasky's people. Share whatever tactical data might give us an edge. Dr. Jackson, see if you can find anything in the ancient database about cross-dimensional technology. Maybe we can figure out how to send these people home before this turns into a shooting war." "General," Lasky interrupted, his voice carrying the calm certainty of a captain who'd made his decision. "With your permission, I'd like to take Infinity to intercept. Draw Anubis away from Earth. If this fight happens in high orbit, Civilian casualties on the surface become more likely. Better to engage them at range. Hammond studied him for a long moment. You're talking about engaging 12 capital ships with no support. I'm talking about protecting Earth from an enemy that wants to enslave or destroy her, Lasky replied. Same mission the UNSC's had for 500 years. Just a different Earth. Palmer stepped forward, her armored bulk somehow making the gesture more imposing. General, Infinity's got over 17,000 personnel aboard. Marines, Navy, Spartans, pilots, and enough firepower to glass a continent if we had to. Yet we fought worse odds against the Covenant and won? Respectfully, sir, this is what we do. Teal'c inclined his head toward Palmer with something approaching approval. I have faced the Goa'uld for over 100 years. I have seen their arrogance, their certainty that none can stand against them. It would give me great satisfaction to witness that arrogance proven false by warriors from beyond this reality. You'll have that chance, Teal'c, a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned. A figure stood in the entrance, small, gray-skinned, with large black eyes and a frame that looked almost fragile. But Lasky had learned during the Covenant War never to judge alien species by appearance. The Sangheili had looked like monsters and turned out to be honorable warriors. The prophets had looked harmless and orchestrated genocide. Thor, Hammond said with obvious relief, your timing is impeccable. The Asgard stepped into the briefing room, his eyes taking in the Spartans with open curiosity before settling on Lasky. When he spoke, his voice had a synthetic quality that suggested technological augmentation. Captain Lasky, I am Supreme Commander Thor of the Asgard Fleet. I have been monitoring your arrival with great interest. Your vessel's energy signature is unlike anything in our databases, and preliminary scans suggest technologies that should not be possible given your apparent human origin. Long story involving ancient aliens, 30 years of war, and some very creative engineering, Lasky replied. Right now, though, we've got a more immediate problem. Thor nodded, his expression, such as it was, growing serious. Indeed. Anubis has assembled a fleet to claim your ship. I have 3 Asgard vessels in range and can be in Earth orbit within minutes. However, I must warn you, even combined, our forces may be insufficient against Anubis's armada if he commits fully to this attack. Roland updated the tactical display, now showing 3 new markers appearing near Earth. Asgard vessels materializing out of hyperspace with the characteristic flash of their beaming technology. O'Neill-class ships, Thor continued, named after your Colonel O'Neill, in recognition of his assistance to my people. Each vessel carries weapons capable of destroying Haytaks in sustained combat, but Anubis's flagship is far more formidable. Jack looked simultaneously pleased and embarrassed. You named spaceships after me. That's actually pretty cool. You saved our entire race from the replicators, Thor replied simply. It was the least we could do. Glassman had been studying the Asgard ship's specifications with growing excitement. Supreme Commander, your beaming technology, the ability to transport matter through shields, that's incredible. We've theorized about directed energy matter conversion, but the power requirements alone are significant, Thor agreed, but manageable with our zero-point energy modules. Dr. Glassman, I would very much like to discuss your vessel's technology in detail. The dimensional displacement alone suggests applications of physics we have not yet mastered. Later, Lasky interjected firmly. Right now, we need a battle plan. Thor, can your vessels coordinate with Infinity? The Asgard's large eyes blinked slowly. Yes. I will transmit tactical protocols. But I must ask, Captain, your ship is clearly powerful. But are you prepared to engage in combat that may result in your permanent stranding in this reality? If Anubis damages your dimensional drives beyond repair, you may never return home. The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Lasky felt 17,000 lives pressing down on that decision. Crew members who'd signed up to explore space and defend humanity, not to die fighting snake-possessed aliens in an alternate universe. Personnel who had families waiting at home. Spartans who'd survived the Covenant War, only to face new enemies in a reality they never asked to enter. But he also felt the weight of Earth. This Earth, with its 7 billion people who had no idea that aliens existed or that their world was under constant threat, Our people who depended on warriors like SG-1 and installations like Stargate Command to stand between them and annihilation. Different Earth. Same mission. Supreme Commander, Lasky said quietly, I took an oath when I joined the UNSC to protect humanity from all threats, foreign and domestic. That oath didn't specify which reality is humanity. If we run now, Anubis gets emboldened. He learns that Earth has no real orbital defense. Next time, he comes with more ships and fewer reservations about collateral damage. I won't let that happen. Palmer's helmet turned toward him. Captain, that's the right call, Commander, Lasky interrupted gently. You know it is. We all do. The Spartans stood silent for a moment, then one by one, their helmets tilted in slight nods. Acknowledgement, agreement, readiness for whatever came next. Hammond extended his hand across the table. Captain Lasky, on behalf of Earth and Stargate Command, I'm authorizing you to engage the Goa'uld fleet in defense of this planet. Coordinate with Supreme Commander Thor. Use whatever tactics you think will work. And Captain, give Anubis a fight he'll remember. Lasky shook the general's hand firmly. Count on it, sir. Commander Palmer, get our people to combat stations. Dr. Glassman, I need you coordinating with Major Carter. Any edge we can get from combining technologies, I want it. Roland, bring Infinity to full combat alert and begin tactical coordination with the Asgard vessels. Aye, Captain, Roland replied, his avatar straightening to attention. And sir, for what it's worth, the crew's behind you. We didn't survive the Covenant just to run from some false gods with delusions of grandeur. That's the spirit, Jack said with a fierce grin. Carter, go with Glassman and help them figure out how to make their space magic work with our space magic. Daniel, you're with me. We're going through the ancient database to find anything about cross-dimensional travel. Teal'c, coordinate with the Takra. If Anubis is committing this much force to Earth, his territories are vulnerable. Maybe we can use that. Teal'c inclined his head. An excellent strategy, O'Neill. I will contact Bratak immediately. Malik had remained silent throughout the exchange, but now the Takra spoke with urgency. General Hammond, I must return to my people and relay this information. The Takra will spread word among the Jaffa resistance. Let them know that Earth has found new allies. It may inspire hope, and hope in war is a weapon unto itself. Go, Hammond commanded, and tell your people that Earth stands ready. We've beaten system lords before. We'll do it again. As Malik departed through the Stargate and the briefing room emptied in controlled chaos, Lasky found himself alone with Palmer for a brief moment. Sir, the Spartan said quietly, her helmet retracting to reveal concerned eyes. This isn't our fight. It is now, Commander, Lasky replied. The moment we came through that spatial anomaly, it became our fight. Because that's what we do. We fight. Palmer studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then let's make sure we win. Sir, a permission to lead a Spartan boarding team if we disable any of those Goa'uld ships? A slight smile crossed Lasky's face. Permission granted. But Palmer, bring them back alive. All of them. Always do, Captain. They moved toward the exit, where a pelican waited to ferry them back to Infinity. As they walked through SGC's corridors, personnel stepped aside for the Spartans, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and hope. These people had been fighting impossible odds for years, Lasky realized. They'd seen their friends die, their missions fail, their world threatened over and over. And now help had arrived from the most unlikely source imaginable. Lasky activated his comm, broadcasting to Infinity on secure channels. All hands, this is the captain. We came here by accident. We didn't choose this fight. But here we stand. And there's an enemy fleet heading toward Earth with hostile intent. You all know what the UNSC stands for. You know what we've sacrificed to protect humanity. That mission hasn't changed just because we're in a different reality. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. In 30 minutes, we're going to engage 12 Goa'uld motherships in defense of this Earth. The odds aren't great. The enemy's unknown, and we're a long way from home. But we're the UNSC Infinity. We've faced worse. We've beaten worse. And today we're going to show these false gods what happens when they threaten humanity. Any humanity. A pause then. All stations, report readiness. One by one, department heads reported in. Engineering, green. Weapons, green. Navigation, green. Air wing, green. Marines, ready and eager. Or then let's go to war, Lasky said quietly. Helm, bring us about. Heading 047 Mark 32. Maximum combat speed. Target, Anubis's fleet. Aye, Captain, came the response. Engaging engines now. 12,000 kilometers above Earth, the UNSC Infinity's drives flared to life, and the massive warship began its intercept course. On the bridge, tactical displays lit up with target solutions, weapon systems hummed to ready status, and thousands of personnel moved with the synchronized precision of a warship preparing for battle. In the void beyond, Anubis's fleet detected the approach and adjusted formation. 12 pyramidal ships arranging themselves in a pattern designed to overwhelm and capture. They had no idea what was coming. And in Stargate Command, General Hammond watched the tactical feed with grim determination. In Godspeed, Captain Lasky, he murmured. Give them hell. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The UNSC Infinity cut through the void like a predator, claiming new hunting grounds. Her gray-white hull reflecting starlight as fusion drives pushed her toward the approaching Goa'uld fleet at velocities that would have terrified Earth's pre-Stargate military. On the bridge, Captain Lasky stood before the main viewport with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the tactical display update in real time as the distance to contact ticked downward. 43,000 kilometers and closing. Enemy fleet maintaining formation, Roland reported, his avatar standing beside the command chair with the calm precision of an AI who'd calculated 10,000 engagement scenarios in the last 5 minutes. Anubis's flagship at center, 11 HATACs in defensive screen formation. So they're not moving to intercept. They're waiting for us to come to them. Classic envelopment strategy, Commander Palmer observed from her position near the Marine deployment stations. She'd removed her helmet, revealing sharp features set in combat-ready focus. Let us close, then surround and concentrate fire. They're treating this like a capture operation, not a kill mission. Which gives us an advantage, Lasky said. They'll hesitate before using maximum firepower. We won't. He turned to his weapons officer, Lieutenant Chen. Status on MAC batteries? Series 8 MACs charged and ready, Captain. Firing solutions locked on the flagship and 3 closest HATACs. Recommend we open with a full barrage. Show them what they're dealing with before they commit fully. Lasky nodded slowly, his tactical mind running through variations. Oh, the Covenant had taught him to respect unknown enemies, to never assume victory until the last hostile went dark. But they'd also taught him that overwhelming initial force could shatter enemy morale and disrupt coordinated attacks. Belay that recommendation, came a new voice. Supreme Commander Thor materialized on the bridge in a flash of Asgard beaming technology, his small gray form appearing beside the tactical holotank. Captain Lasky, I would advise caution. Anubis's flagship possesses shields derived from ancient technology. A direct assault may not penetrate his defenses and will reveal your full capabilities before we understand his. Lasky turned to face the Asgard commander, noting the subtle tension in Thor's posture that suggested genuine concern. Supreme Commander, what do you recommend? A coordinated strike. My vessels will engage the HATAC screen while your ship focuses fire on Anubis's flagship. Asgard weapons are specifically calibrated to penetrate Goa'uld shielding. We have been fighting them for centuries. But Anubis's enhanced shields require sustained, focused assault. Your MAC cannons, if they perform as your specifications suggest, may be sufficient to overwhelm his defenses. The tactical display updated, showing 3 Asgard O'Neill-class vessels taking up positions in a triangular formation around Infinity. The small ships, barely 300 meters long, looked insignificant compared to Infinity's massive bulk. But Lasky had learned not to judge alien technology by human standards. Agreed, Lasky said, but I want options if this goes wrong. Roland, prepare firing solutions for all targets. If we need to break through that screen and run, I want vectors calculated. Already done, Captain, the AI replied, though I should note that running would leave Earth exposed to immediate retaliation. And given the crew's current morale indicators, suggesting retreat at this point might cause a mutiny. Despite the tension, Lasky allowed himself a slight smile. Noted. Helm, reduce speed to match Asgard formation. Weapons, hold fire until my command. Communications, open a channel to the Goa'uld flagship. Lieutenant Kai 125 looked up from the communication station, his fingers moving across unfamiliar UNSC controls with the adaptability that came from integrating two realities worth of technology. Channel open, Captain. They're responding. The main view screen flickered, and then resolved into an image that made several bridge crew members tense. The figure that appeared was humanoid, but clearly not entirely human. His eyes glowed with an inner light that suggested something parasitic residing within, and his armor was ornate beyond any practical military purpose, all gold and black with symbols that hurt to look at too long. I am Anubis, the figure spoke in a voice layered with harmonic resonance that suggested technological augmentation. Supreme System Lord, wielder of ancient knowledge, master of all who dwell in this galaxy. You have entered my domain in a vessel of unknown origin. Identify yourself and explain your presence, or be destroyed. Lasky met those glowing eyes without flinching. 3 decades of staring down Covenant zealots had prepared him for beings who claimed divine authority. Worry, I am Captain Thomas Lasky of the United Nations Space Command vessel Infinity. We arrived in this system by accident and have no hostile intentions toward anyone, provided we're not threatened. Call off your fleet and we can discuss this peacefully. Anubis's expression shifted to something that might have been amusement. You speak of peace while commanding a warship that radiates power beyond anything this galaxy has seen. Do you take me for a fool, human? I know what you are. Refugees from another reality, lost and desperate. I offer you a choice. Surrender your vessel to me, and I will grant you life as my servants. You will have honor, purpose, and the glory of serving the one true God of this galaxy. Refuse, and I will take your ship by force and feed your crew to my Jaffa as examples of what befalls those who defy me. Palmer's hand moved to her sidearm. Several Spartans on the bridge tensed visibly, but Lasky remained perfectly still, his expression neutral. That's not much of a choice, he replied calmly. Here's a counteroffer. Turn your fleet around, leave Earth's space, and we'll pretend this conversation never happened. Because I promise you, Anubis, if you attack this ship, you won't like what happens next. The Goa'uld's eyes flared brighter. You dare threaten a god? I have destroyed civilizations that defied me. I have wiped entire species from existence. I possess knowledge of the ancients themselves. What are you compared to my power? Someone who's killed actual gods, Lasky said quietly. We fought enemies who could glass planets from orbit. We've faced fleets that numbered in the thousands. We've gone up against technology so advanced it seemed like magic, and we won. So here's what's going to happen, Anubis. You're going to call off your attack, or you're going to learn why humanity survived 500 years in a hostile galaxy. For a moment, genuine uncertainty flickered across Anubis's features. Then his expression hardened into cold fury. So be it. You will learn the price of defying a god. My Jaffa will tear your ship apart, and I will personally extract your consciousness to torment for eternity within a sarcophagus. This audience is at an end. The transmission cut off. Well, Roland observed, that went about as well as expected. Enemy fleet accelerating, Chen reported. And all vessels moving to attack formation. They're spreading out. Classic envelopment pattern. Estimate contact in 90 seconds. Thor's holographic image appeared beside Lasky. Captain, the Asgard vessels are ready. We will engage the Hatak screen. I recommend you target Anubis's flagship with maximum firepower. If we can destroy or disable his command ship, the others may retreat. Or they might go berserk and attack everything in sight, Palmer countered. Covenant forces did that sometimes when we killed their leaders. The Jaffa are not suicidal, Thor replied. They are warriors bound by loyalty to their gods, but they are not foolish. Without Anubis to command them, they will withdraw or surrender. Lasky made his decision. Weapons, target the flagship. Mac rounds, sequential fire. I want to test his shields before we commit to full barrage. Helm, evasive pattern delta. Keep us moving. Don't give them a stationary target. Air wing, launch all fighters. Establish combat air patrol and be ready to intercept enemy bombers. Across Infinity's massive hull, launch bays irised open, and longsword interceptors began streaming out in precise formations. The single-seat fighters were tiny compared to Infinity's bulk, but each packed enough firepower to threaten capital ships, and their pilots were the best the UNSC had produced. Longsword Squadron Alpha away, reported the Air Wing coordinator. Squadrons Bravo through Echo launching now. Total count, 64 fighters in space. The Goa'uld fleet responded immediately. Death gliders began pouring from the Hattaks like angry hornets. Small, the golden craft with distinctive wing configurations that moved with surprising agility. Hundreds of them, filling the void between the two fleets with hostile intent. Contact in 30 seconds, Chen announced. Targeting solution locked. MAC cannons ready. Fire, Lasky ordered. The Series 8 MAC, magnetic accelerator cannon, was humanity's answer to energy shields and advanced armor. A 1,600-ton ferrous tungsten projectile accelerated to 4% of light speed by superconducting electromagnets running the length of Infinity's spine. When it hit, the kinetic energy release was measured in megatons. The first round crossed the distance in a fraction of a second. Anubis's flagship shields flared brilliant gold as the round impacted, energy discharging across the pyramid-shaped hull in cascading patterns. The ship shuddered visibly, its formation disrupted as systems strained to absorb the kinetic transfer, but the shields held. Shields at 87%, Chen reported, recalibrating his sensors. They're stronger than expected, Captain. Ancient derived technology confirmed. Recommend sustained barrage. Negative, Lasky said, watching the tactical display update with new data. One shot told us what we needed to know. They can take a hit, but they can't ignore us. Shift targets. Hit the Hattaks while Thor engages the flagship. Let's thin their numbers. The Asgard vessels move with impossible precision, their small forms darting between Goa'uld motherships like sharks among whales. Blue-white beams of coherent energy lanced out from their weapons arrays, striking Hattak shields with surgical accuracy. Unlike the UNSC's kinetic weapons, Asgard technology had been specifically developed to counter Goa'uld defenses, and it showed. The first Hattak's shields collapsed under sustained fire, and the ship began venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Target the damaged vessel, Lasky ordered. Missile barrage, full spread. Let's finish what Thor started. Infinity's missile batteries opened up, and hundreds of Howler missiles streaked across the void on pillars of fire. They were smaller than MAC rounds but far more numerous, and their warheads were designed for different purposes. Anti-shield plasma bursts, armor-penetrating shaped charges, and electromagnetic pulse variants that could cripple ship systems. The damaged Hattak tried to maneuver, its remaining shields flickering desperately as point defense weapons attempted to intercept the incoming missiles. It managed to destroy perhaps a third of them. The rest hit like the wrath of an angry god. Explosions rippled across the pyramid's surface, carving deep gouges in armor that had withstood staff weapon fire for centuries. Secondary detonations bloomed from within as missile warheads found vulnerable systems. The ship's power core destabilized, and the entire vessel detonated in a brief, brilliant flash that sent debris expanding outward in a spherical pattern. On the bridge of Infinity, the crew erupted in cheers. First blood, first kill. Belay the celebration, Lasky snapped, though he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Tactical? Status on remaining hostiles? 10 Hattaks remaining, Captain. They're adjusting formation, pulling back from the Asgard vessels and concentrating fire on us. Reading massive energy buildup from their weapons. Incoming. Golden bolts of plasma energy, staff cannon fire magnified to capital ship scale, streaked toward Infinity from multiple vectors simultaneously. The bridge crew tensed, but the ship's point defense systems responded with mechanical precision. Infinity's shields flared as the first impact struck, energy discharging across the bow in spectacular fashion. The ship tremored slightly, but damage control reported minimal penetration. Shields holding at 92%, Roland reported. Their weapons are impressive for their tech level, but insufficient to threaten our primary defensive systems. Recommend we close to effective MAC range and engage targets of opportunity. Lasky shook his head. Negative. They want us to close so they can surround us. Maintain current range. Weapons, fire at will on the Hattaks. Thor, status on Anubis's flagship? The Asgard commander's voice came through with unusual strain. His shields are regenerating faster than we can deplete them, Captain. Ancient technology includes self-repair mechanisms we cannot easily counter. We need concentrated fire from your Mac batteries. Anubis is adapting, Palmer observed, studying the tactical display with professional concern. He's using the Hatax as a screen while his flagship recovers. Smart. He knows Thor's the real threat to him, and he's neutralizing the Asgard advantage. Before Lasky could respond, the tactical display lit up with new contacts. Additional hyperspace windows were opening throughout the combat zone, not from the direction of Goa'uld territory, but from Earth itself. Multiple gate activations on the planet's surface, Roland reported with what sounded like surprise in his synthesized voice. I'm reading, Captain, that's impossible. They're dialing multiple stargates simultaneously. The view screen split to show feeds from Earth's surface. At Stargate Command, the gate was active, but so were gates at secondary sites, Area 51, Antarctica, and locations Lasky didn't recognize. From each gate, armed teams were emerging, not just SG-1, but dozens of teams, all heavily armed and moving with the coordinated precision of Special Operations Forces, and they were heading for ships. General Hammond is launching a ground assault, Thor explained, his tone carrying approval. Yes, he's using the Stargate network to deploy teams to planets where we've previously captured or disabled Goa'uld vessels. They're commandeering Hatax. As Lasky watched in fascination, several of the previously neutral markers on the tactical display changed designation. Goa'uld motherships that had been stationed at Allied worlds suddenly began moving, their new human crews bringing them online and vectoring toward the battle. They're stealing enemy ships during the battle, Palmer said with something approaching awe. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. 3 Hatax, now under SGC control, emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the combat zone. They were battered, their systems clearly operating at reduced capacity, but they were armed and their crews were motivated. When Colonel Reynolds' voice crackled over the communications channel, his Texas drawl unmistakable. UNSC Infinity, this is SG-3 commanding the Tauri vessel. Yeah, we're calling her the Korolev after a Russian pilot who died taking down a Hatak last year. We're not as pretty as you folks, but we can shoot straight. Transmitting targeting data now. 2 more voices joined the channel. Teams Lasky didn't know commanding vessels with names like Phoenix and George Hammond. Earth's forces had just tripled in size. Anubis clearly noticed. His flagship began launching Al-Kesh bombers, larger craft designed for assault runs against capital ships. Dozens of them, their formation coordinated and their targeting scanners locked onto Infinity. Incoming bombers, Chen reported. Count is 37 craft. They're carrying what look like heavy plasma torpedoes. If those hit our shields in concentrated volleys, Air Wing, you have hostile bombers inbound, Lasky transmitted to his fighter squadrons. Clear them out. In the void, the longsword pilots responded with the aggressive efficiency that made UNSC aviators legendary. The interceptors dove toward the Al-Kesh formation, their Gatling guns and missiles tearing into the Goa'uld craft with devastating effect. The bombers were tough, far tougher than death gliders, but they weren't designed to dogfight, and the longsword pilots exploited that weakness ruthlessly. Al-Kesh began exploding in rapid succession, their debris fields creating navigation hazards that forced the remaining bombers to break formation. This is Longsword Alpha, the squadron leader reported, his voice carrying combat excitement. Hostiles are breaking off. They're not equipped for fighter intercept. We've got this, Infinity. But Anubis wasn't finished. His flagship began moving, the massive pyramid accelerating with surprising speed directly toward Infinity. Energy readings spiked across all sensors. He's charging a main weapon, Thor warned urgently. Captain, that's an ancient energy lance. It can penetrate any known shielding. You must evade immediately. Helm, hard to port! Emergency thrust, Lasky ordered. Infinity began her evasive maneuver, her massive bulk responding with the agility that came from having the most advanced maneuvering thrusters in the UNSC fleet. But she was still a 3.5-mile-long ship trying to dodge a weapon moving at relativistic speeds. The energy lance fired, a coherent beam of golden light that seemed to tear through space itself. It missed Infinity's center mass by less than 200 meters, close enough that the energy discharge played across the shields and sent damage alerts screaming through every system. The bridge lights flickered. Several consoles exploded in showers of sparks. And for one terrifying moment, Lasky felt the ship shudder like a wounded animal. "Shields down to 43%, Roland reported, his avatar flickering. "That beam penetrated our primary defensive grid. If it had hit directly—" "It didn't," Lasky said firmly. "Damage report. Sections 7 through 12 on Deck 9 are compromised. Sealing bulkheads. Casualties are minimal, mostly burns and impacts. Engineering reports the shields are regenerating, but it'll take 3 minutes to restore full coverage." 3 minutes in fleet combat was an eternity. Anubis's flagship was turning for another shot, and Lasky realized they were out of time for careful tactics. "All batteries concentrate fire on Anubis's flagship," he ordered. "Everything we have. Max, missiles, energy projectors. I want that ship crippled before he can fire again. Thor, coordinate with our targeting systems. Let's see if combined Asgard and UNSC firepower can crack that shell." "Acknowledged," Thor replied. Asgard vessels moving to flanking positions. Firing in 3, 2, 1, now. Infinity's full arsenal unleashed simultaneously. 4 Mach rounds fired in rapid sequence, each one a streak of electromagnetically accelerated death. Hundreds of missiles followed, their warheads set for sequential detonation to overwhelm shield regeneration. Energy projectors, Forerunner technology reverse-engineered and improved by human ingenuity, carved golden beams across the void. And from 3 vectors, Asgard energy weapons added their fury to the assault. The concentration of firepower was beyond anything the Goa'uld had encountered in 10,000 years of warfare. Anubis's shields blazed like a newborn star, energy discharging in patterns that suggested technology desperately trying to compensate for impossible damage. The first Mach round penetrated, slamming into the pyramid's hull and creating a crater visible from thousands of kilometers away. The second followed, widening the breach. The third and fourth struck different sections, and suddenly Anubis's flagship was venting atmosphere, debris, and what looked like Jaffa warriors into the void. "His shields are down," Chen shouted. "Direct hits confirmed. He's doing something. Energy readings are spiking again." The flagship's remaining weapons batteries opened fire in a desperate broadside, but the shots went wild, not toward Infinity or the Asgard vessels, but toward the commandeered Hattaks crewed by SGC personnel. The Korolev took a direct hit. Her shields collapsed, and staff cannon fire carved deep into her hull. "Korolev is hit," Reynolds' voice came through, background explosions audible. "We've got hull breaches on multiple decks. Systems failing. The transmission cut to static. "Transport them out," Lasky ordered. "Roland, get a lock on human life signs aboard that vessel and beam them directly to our medical bay." "Already on it." Captain," the AI replied. "Beaming now. I've got 43 human life signs. Transporting." The Korolev's power core detonated, adding another expanding debris field to the battle space. But Anubis's flagship was dying too. The massive vessel listed to starboard, secondary explosions rippling across its hull as systems overloaded and failed. Escape pods began launching, small golden craft fleeing the destruction. "He's abandoning ship," Palmer observed. "The system lord's running." "Reading hyperspace window forming," Chen reported. "The flagship's trying to jump." "Don't let him escape," Lasky commanded. "Mac batteries, target his hyperspace generator. Fire!" One final round streaked across the void, but it was too late. The hyperspace window collapsed around Anubis's crippled flagship, and both vanished in a flash of exotic energy, leaving only debris and confused Jaffa warriors in their wake. The remaining Hattaks, now leaderless, began powering down their weapons, and across all communication channels, a single word echoed from hundreds of Jaffa voices. Kree. It wasn't an attack cry, it was surrender. The silence that followed the battle was more unnerving than the combat itself. Lasky stood on Infinity's bridge watching the tactical display as 9 Goa'uld Hattaks drifted in the void, their weapons powered down, their crews broadcasting surrender signals on every frequency. Debris from the destroyed motherships expanded outward in slow-motion clouds, and escape pods dotted the space between vessels like scattered seeds. "Status report," Lasky ordered, his voice cutting through the stunned quiet that had settled over the bridge crew. Roland's avatar flickered back to full stability, the AI having diverted processing power to damage control during the engagement. Shields regenerating, currently at 68% and climbing. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 14, all sealed. Casualties, 17 wounded, 3 critical, 0 fatalities. Engineering reports primary systems nominal, though we burned through 40% of our MAC ammunition reserves. Air Wing is recovering fighters now. We lost 2 longswords, but both pilots ejected successfully and are being retrieved. Commander Palmer crossed to the tactical station, her armor still bearing scorch marks from when a bridge console had exploded near her position. Captain, we've got approximately 8,000 Jaffa warriors scattered across those hattacks, plus whatever's floating in escape pods. What's our ROE on prisoners? Before Lasky could answer, Supreme Commander Thor materialized on the bridge in his characteristic beam of light. The Asgard looked as composed as ever, though his large eyes carried something that might have been satisfaction. Captain Lasky, your performance was exemplary. The Asgard have fought the Goa'uld for centuries, and I have never witnessed such a decisive victory against a superior numerical force. Your tactical coordination and firepower exceeded all projections. We had help, Lasky replied, nodding toward the view screen where the 2 remaining SGC commandeered hattacks floated alongside Infinity. How many survivors did we get from the Korolev? 43 personnel transported to your medical bay, Thor confirmed. All are receiving treatment. Colonel Reynolds is among the injured but will survive. He has requested permission to return to duty as soon as possible. I believe his exact words were, "Those snake-headed bastards owe me a ship." Despite the tension, several bridge crew members smiled. The fighting spirit was apparently universal across realities. Saudi, the Jaffa warriors are broadcasting surrender, Thor continued, his tone shifting to more serious matters. This presents both opportunity and complication. Many of them have spent their entire lives believing the Goa'uld are gods. Witnessing their god's flagship destroyed by unknown humans from another reality will cause significant psychological disruption. Teal'c's voice came over the communications channel from Stargate Command, where he'd been coordinating with the Free Jaffa resistance during the battle. Captain Lasky, if I may offer counsel, the Jaffa you have defeated are not your enemies. They are slaves who know no other life. Many can be turned to freedom, as I was. But they will require proof that the Goa'uld are false gods, and they will need purpose beyond servitude. Lasky considered this, his mind shifting from fleet combat to the more complex battlefield of hearts and minds. The UNSC had faced similar situations during the Covenant War. Sangheili warriors who'd believed the Great Journey was real, only to discover they'd been lied to by their prophets. Some had become allies. Others had fought to the death rather than accept the truth. Teal'c, what do you recommend? Speak to them, the Jaffa warrior replied. Show them the strength of the Tauri, of all humans who stand free. Offer them a choice, continue serving false gods who abandon them in battle, or join the rebellion and forge their own destiny. Some will refuse, but many will listen, and those who listen may become your greatest allies in this war. Palmer looked at Lasky with raised eyebrows. Sir, we're talking about potentially recruiting 8,000 enemy combatants. That's a security nightmare. We don't have the facilities to hold that many prisoners, and we certainly can't integrate them into UNSC operations without extensive vetting. But we're not in UNSC space anymore, Commander, Lasky said quietly. We're in Stargate Command's reality, fighting their war alongside their allies. General Hammond, are you still monitoring this channel? The general's voice came through clearly from Cheyenne Mountain. I am, Captain, and I agree with Teal'c's assessment. The Free Jaffa Rebellion has been growing for years, but it needs momentum. 8,000 warriors witnessing the defeat of Anubis, one of the most powerful system lords, could be the catalyst that turns a rebellion into a revolution. When we have facilities on allied worlds where they can be processed, educated, and given the choice Teal'c described, then that's what we'll do, Lasky decided. Roland, broadcast on all frequencies, translation protocols. I want every Jaffa on those ships to hear this. Channel open, Captain. You're transmitting to all vessels and escape pods in the combat zone. Lasky took a breath, then spoke with the same authority he'd used when addressing UNSC personnel during the darkest days of the Covenant War. Warriors of the Jaffa, I am Captain Thomas Lasky of the UNSC Infinity. You have fought bravely in service to the one you call Anubis, but your god has fled. He abandoned you to die while he escaped to save himself. Your ships are crippled, your fleet is defeated, and you face a choice. He paused, letting the words sink in across thousands of ears. You can continue believing in gods who use you as weapons and disposable soldiers. You can die for masters who care nothing for your lives or honor. Or you can listen to the truth. The Goa'uld are not gods. They are parasites who enslaved your ancestors through lies and fear. But there is another path. The Free Jaffa have risen against their false masters. They fight for freedom, for honor, and for a future where your children will never kneel before false divinity. Teal's voice joined the transmission, his deep tones carrying the weight of a century's experience. I am Teal of Chulak, once first prime of Apophis, now free and warrior of the Tauri. I speak the truth Captain Lasky offers. I have killed system lords. I have seen gods bleed and die like any mortal being. The Goa'uld fear you learning what I know, that you are stronger than they are, that without your service, they are nothing. Join us. Choose freedom. Choose to fight for yourselves rather than for those who would see you die for their ambition. The communications channels erupted with responses, some angry, some confused, some cautiously hopeful. Lasky watched the tactical display as life sign readings shifted and moved across the Jaffa vessels. Some were clearly arguing. Others were gathering in groups, their body language suggesting intense discussion. Then, one by one, the Hataks began powering down their remaining defensive systems. We're receiving hails, Lieutenant Kai 125 reported from communications. Multiple Jaffa warriors requesting to speak with Teal. Some are declaring allegiance to the Free Jaffa nation. Others are, Captain, we've got requests for asylum. They're asking to come aboard. Palmer's hand went to her sidearm instinctively, but she kept her voice neutral. Sir, allowing potentially hostile aliens onto Infinity could compromise ship security. I'm aware, Commander, Lasky replied, but we need intelligence on Anubis's forces, and we need to establish credibility with the Free Jaffa if we're going to be stuck in this reality. Thor, can the Asgard assist with processing the surrendered Jaffa? We can transport them to designated holding facilities on Jaffa-controlled worlds, Thor confirmed. The Free Jaffa nation has been preparing for mass defections. This will accelerate their timetable significantly, but they are capable of managing the influx. Then coordinate with Teal'c and make it happen. Roland, you maintain security protocols. Any Jaffa who wants to come aboard Infinity submits to full screening and agrees to observation. Commander Palmer, assign Spartan security details to all docking areas. Anyone steps out of line, you have authorization to respond with appropriate force. Understood, sir, Palmer replied, already moving toward the exit. Spartans, you heard the captain? Full combat loadout, non-lethal protocols unless situation escalates. Let's show our guests what UNSC hospitality looks like. As Palmer departed with 4 Spartans in tow, Dr. Glassman approached the command station with his datapad clutched like a shield against the post-battle chaos. Captain, I've been analyzing the engagement data. The energy readings from Anubis's weapon, that lance he fired, the physics are extraordinary. It utilized principles similar to Forerunner hard-light technology, but with integration of what appears to be zero-point energy manipulation. If we could study, later, Doctor, Lasky interrupted gently. Right now, I need you working with Major Carter on shield harmonics. That weapon punched through our defenses too easily. If we face another system lord with ancient technology, I want our shields upgraded to compensate. Glassman's expression shifted from scientific enthusiasm to focused determination. Understood, Captain. I'll coordinate with her immediately. Though I should mention, the data we gathered from this engagement alone represents years' worth of research into exotic energy manipulation, faster-than-light travel variations, and cross-dimensional physics. When we get home, if we get home, the Office of Naval Intelligence is going to have a field day with this. If we get home, Lasky repeated quietly, the weight of those words settling on him like physical burden. He looked at the view screen, where Earth hung in the distance, beautiful, blue, and utterly alien despite its familiar appearance. Somewhere down there, his Earth existed in another reality. His crew had families waiting, the UNSC had missions planned, and they were stuck here, 12,000 light years from anything they'd ever known. But they'd won. They'd defended Earth against overwhelming odds, and they'd earned the right to figure out what came next. "Sir," Roland interrupted his thoughts. "Incoming transmission from Stargate Command. General Hammond requests video conference with you and Supreme Commander Thor. He says it's urgent. Something about the Takra and intelligence regarding Anubis's next move." Lasky straightened, pushing personal concerns aside in favor of operational priorities. "Patch him through to the briefing room. Thor, can you join me?" "Of course, Captain Lasky. I too am curious what the Takra have learned." They moved to Infinity's primary briefing room, a space designed for fleet coordination meetings, now serving as command center for an impromptu alliance between three different civilizations. The holographic display activated, showing General Hammond's weathered features alongside Major Carter, Colonel O'Neill, Dr. Jackson, and Malik of the Takra. "Captain Lasky, Supreme Commander Thor," Hammond began without preamble. "First, congratulations on a decisive victory. The Strategic Air Command has been tracking the battle via satellite, and the President has authorized me to extend formal thanks for defending Earth against hostile alien forces. You've earned significant political capital with the powers that be." "Appreciated, General," Lasky replied. "But your tone suggests this isn't purely a congratulatory call." Jack leaned forward, his casual demeanor not quite masking concern. "Yeah, about that. Turns out punching Anubis in the face has consequences. The Takra just got intel from their spies embedded with other system lords. Every major player in the galaxy now knows Earth has a 3-mile-long warship from another reality, and they're very interested in either allying with us or destroying us before we upset their balance of power." Malik's dual-tone voice carried urgency. "The system lords are in chaos, Captain Lasky. Anubis's defeat has shown them vulnerability. Some see opportunity to strike at his weakened territories. Others see your vessel as the greater threat, proof that Earth can defend itself with overwhelming force. Already we have reports of Baal mobilizing his fleet, you convening his advisors, and several minor Goa'uld declaring intentions to claim your ship as tribute." "Let them try," Lasky said with quiet confidence. "We just demonstrated what happens when Goa'uld forces challenge Infinity." "Indeed," Thor interjected, "but Captain, you must understand the strategic landscape has fundamentally shifted. Before your arrival, Earth was a minor player, significant because of the Stargate and our protection, but not a direct threat to System Lord dominance. Now, will you represent a wild card that could tip the balance of galactic power? The Goa'uld will not ignore this." Daniel pushed his glasses up, his archaeologist's mind clearly working through historical parallels. "It's like when the United States entered World War II. Suddenly, the strategic calculus changed for everyone. Captain Lasky, you've just announced to an entire galaxy that Earth has teeth. That's going to have repercussions we can't fully predict." Carter pulled up tactical displays showing Goa'uld territories mapped across the galaxy. "We're already detecting increased hyperspace traffic. Scout ships, intelligence vessels, and what look like diplomatic envoys all heading toward Earth. Some are from allies, the Tok'ra, the Free Jaffa, but others are from neutral or hostile factions. God, we're going to be very popular very quickly." "Which brings us to the strategic question," Hammond said. "Captain, what are your intentions? Infinity could leave Earth's solar system, try to find a way home through exploration and research. You've fulfilled your obligation to us. You defended our planet and won decisively. No one would fault you for making your crew's return home the priority." Lasky met the general's eyes through the holographic display, understanding the weight behind the question. Hammond was giving him an out. Permission to leave before the political situation got more complicated, before the UNSC Infinity became a permanent fixture in Stargate Command's war, before 17,000 people became indefinitely stranded in an alien reality, fighting someone else's battles. "General," Lasky said slowly, "I appreciate the consideration, but we both know leaving now would destabilize everything. The moment Infinity departs Earth's space, every system lord with ambition is going to probe your defenses. They'll want to test whether Earth's protection was a one-time event or permanent capability, and you don't have the orbital assets to repel a concentrated attack. The Asgard Protected Planets Treaty," Hammond began, "won't cover indefinite fleet deployments," Thor interrupted. "Captain Lasky is correct. The Asgard can defend Earth against individual system lords, but we are spread across many protected worlds and engage in our own conflicts with the replicators. We cannot maintain permanent defense of Earth's orbit without abandoning other commitments. So you're stuck with us, Lasky concluded. H1 at least until we can help you develop your own orbital defense capability or find a way home, whichever comes first. Jack grinned despite the serious situation. See, this is why I like you, Captain. You're pragmatic. So what do you need from us? Information, Lasky replied immediately. Everything you know about System Lord territories, allied worlds, neutral zones, and ancient technology. If we're going to be effective here, we need to understand the strategic landscape. Dr. Glassman needs access to your ancient database to research dimensional travel, and I need to coordinate with your military command on defense protocols. What happens when the next fleet shows up, who calls the shots, and how we prevent friendly fire incidents. Hammond nodded approvingly. All reasonable requests. Major Carter, work with Dr. Glassman on the ancient database. Dr. Jackson, compile everything we know about Goa'uld politics and territorial claims. Colonel O'Neill, you'll serve as liaison between SGC and Infinity's command structure. We'll establish joint operational protocols and rules of engagement. There is one additional matter, Malik said, his glowing eyes fixing on Lasky with unusual intensity. The Tok'ra Council wishes to meet with you, Captain. They see potential for alliance. Your technology combined with our intelligence network could significantly damage System Lord capabilities. But they will have questions about your origins, your intentions, and whether you can be trusted with sensitive information. The Tok'ra are paranoid, Jack explained. Comes from spending centuries as spies inside enemy organizations. They'll want proof you're not some elaborate Goa'uld trick or rogue Asgard experiment. No offense, Thor. None taken, O'Neill. The concern is logical given the circumstances. Lasky considered this new complication. More politics, more factions, more opportunities for misunderstanding and conflict, but also potential allies with intelligence capabilities Infinity desperately needed. I'll meet with them, he decided, but on neutral ground with security present. Commander Palmer and a Spartan team will accompany me. If the Tok'ra want alliance, they'll respect reasonable security protocols. Agreed, Malik said. I will convey your terms to the Council. They will likely propose meeting on one of our protected worlds. We have tunnel networks that cannot be detected by Goa'uld sensors. A delegation can be arranged within 48 hours. Captain, Roland's voice interrupted through Infinity's internal communications. I'm detecting a hyperspace window forming at the edge of the system. Single vessel, configuration doesn't match Goa'uld design. I think it's broadcasting an Asgard identification code. Thor's expression shifted to what might have been surprise. That is the Daniel Jackson, one of our science vessels. I did not summon additional Asgard support. The holographic display updated to show the new arrival, a sleek Asgard ship entering Earth's solar system at high velocity. It decelerated rapidly, taking up position near Infinity with the precision that characterized all Asgard operations. A new transmission arrived, audio only. The voice was recognizably Asgard but carried a different tonal quality than Thor's. Supreme Commander Thor, this is Science Commander Hermiot aboard the Daniel Jackson. I have been monitoring the engagement from our research facility and felt compelled to investigate the UNSC vessel personally. The energy signatures suggest technology from outside our dimensional framework. Implications for theoretical physics are extraordinary. I request permission to conduct non-invasive scans and potentially establish research collaboration with the vessel's scientific staff. Thor's eyes seemed to brighten slightly. Hermiot is one of our finest scientific minds, though his social protocols leave much to be desired. Captain Lasky, this could be beneficial. The Asgard have extensive experience with dimensional physics and exotic matter manipulation. But collaboration might accelerate your efforts to return home. Permission granted, Lasky said, though he made a mental note to ensure Glassman established clear boundaries on what the Asgard could and couldn't examine. Dr. Glassman will coordinate research protocols, but Thor, I want your personal assurance that any discoveries related to Infinity's dimensional drive remain classified. You have my word, Captain. The Asgard do not share technology without consent, and we respect intellectual property rights of allied species. As the briefing concluded and various participants disconnected to handle their respective responsibilities, Lasky found himself alone in the briefing room with just Roland's avatar for company. "Captain," the AI said quietly, "the crew's asking questions. How long are we staying? What's our primary mission now? Gosh, when do we start seriously looking for a way home? You're going to need to address them soon." "I know," Lasky replied, staring at the tactical display showing Earth, the captured Hatoks, the Asgard vessels, and Infinity floating in a strange new reality. "What's crew morale looking like?" "Mixed," Roland admitted. "The victory helped. Combat tends to unite personnel around immediate objectives, but underlying anxiety remains. We've got families back home, missions we're missing, lives on hold. Engineering crews are requesting priority research time on the dimensional drive. Medical is asking about long-term supply projections. And the Marines want to know if we're officially at war with the Goa'uld or if this was a one-time defensive engagement." "All valid questions," Lasky said. "Assemble department heads for 1,800 hours. One full briefing on strategic situation, alliance commitments, and research priorities. We need everyone on the same page." "Understood, Captain. And sir, for what it's worth, I've been running probability matrices on our situation. Best case scenario, we find a way home within 6 months. Worst case, we're here permanently and need to establish Infinity as a long-term asset in Stargate Command's defensive posture. Either way, the decisions you make in the next 72 hours will likely determine which outcome we face." Lasky nodded slowly, the weight of command pressing down with familiar heaviness. He'd made calls before that affected thousands of lives, ordered ships into battles some didn't return from, signed off on operations that meant death for good people in service of strategic objectives. But those had always been UNSC operations. Humanity's war, his reality. This was something else entirely. "Roland," he said quietly, "compile everything we know about ancient technology, Forerunner similarities, and dimensional physics theories. Cross-reference with our encounter data from the spatial anomaly that brought us here. If there's a pattern, any pattern, that might explain how to reverse the process, I want it found." "Already compiling, Captain. Though I should note, the spatial anomaly's energy signature matched nothing in our databases. Whatever brought us here, it wasn't standard slip space or hyperdrive malfunction. It was something else, something unprecedented." "Then we'll figure out the precedent," Lasky replied with determination. "We didn't survive the Covenant War by accepting impossible situations. We survived by finding solutions everyone said didn't exist. So this is no different. Respectfully, sir, this is very different. We're trapped in an alternate reality fighting alien parasites who think they're gods while trying to not get killed by their fleet, captured by their rivals, or permanently stranded in a universe where home doesn't exist. That's significantly more complicated than even our worst Covenant engagement." Despite everything, Lasky smiled slightly. "When you put it that way, Roland, it does sound challenging. Good thing we're the UNSC Infinity. Challenging is what we do." The AI's avatar flickered in what might have been amusement. "I'll add that to the crew morale briefing, sir. Very inspiring." As Lasky left the briefing room and headed back toward the bridge, he passed crew members moving through Infinity's corridors with purpose. Some were heading to damage control stations, others to medical, still others to weapons maintenance. They saluted as he passed, and he saw in their eyes the same thing he'd seen during the Covenant War. Trust, confidence that their captain knew what he was doing. Faith that somehow, some way, they'd get through this. He just hoped he could live up to that faith. Because 8,000 Jaffa warriors were about to come aboard. The Tok'ra wanted meetings, the Asgard wanted research access, and somewhere in the void, Anubis was licking his wounds and planning revenge. The war had just begun, and Captain Thomas Lasky had 17,000 lives depending on him to find a way forward. The Tok'ra homeworld, designated P3R118 in Stargate Command's database, was nothing like Lasky had expected. The surface appeared barren, red sand dunes stretching to a hazy horizon under twin suns that painted everything in shades of crimson and amber. No structures, no visible habitation. Nothing that suggested an advanced civilization lived here. Until the Stargate shut down behind SG-1 and their UNSC escorts, and the ground began to move. Tunneling crystals, Dr. Jackson explained as the sands shifted and parted, revealing a descending passage formed from what looked like living rock. The Tok'ra used biotechnology to grow their bases underground, completely undetectable by orbital scans. The Goa'uld could search this planet for years and never find them. Commander Palmer descended the crystalline tunnel stairs with her rifle at low ready, flanked by 4 Spartans whose MJOLNIR armor reflected the tunnel's natural bioluminescence in unsettling patterns. Captain Lasky followed with Dr. Glassman, while Colonel O'Neill brought up the rear with Teal'c and Major Carter. The tunnel walls pulsed with gentle light, organic technology that somehow felt both alien and familiar, like stepping inside a living organism. "This is incredible," Glassman murmured, his scientific curiosity temporarily overriding security concerns. "Programmable matter at macroscopic scales. Captain, the engineering implications alone could revolutionize construction techniques if we could understand the growth patterns." "Focus, Doctor," Lasky reminded him gently. "We're here for diplomacy, not research, though I share your interest." The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber that made even the Spartans pause. Crystalline pillars rose from floor to ceiling, like the ribs of some massive creature, their surfaces inscribed with symbols that shifted and changed as if alive. Tok'ra personnel moved through the space with purpose, humans and symbiotes in perfect partnership, their eyes occasionally flashing with inner light as host and parasite communicated. At the chamber's center stood a delegation of 5 Tok'ra, their ceremonial robes marking them as the High Council. Malik was among them, but the figure at the center commanded immediate attention. An older woman whose bearing suggested authority earned through centuries of experience. "Captain Lasky," she spoke in that distinctive dual voice, "I am Garshaw of Belote, leader of the Tok'ra High Council. You honor us with your presence, though I confess when Malik first reported a warship from another reality arriving at Earth, I assumed he had been compromised by Goa'uld manipulation." "The feeling's mutual," Jack said with his characteristic irreverence. "When we first saw Infinity, we thought it was either an elaborate trick or proof the universe has a really weird sense of humor. Turns out it's option 2. Garshaw's expression suggested she was uncertain whether O'Neill's comment was amusing or insulting, but she continued smoothly. "We have observed your battle against Anubis with great interest. The Tok'ra have spent centuries gathering intelligence on System Lord capabilities, and I can state with confidence that no Goa'uld vessel in recorded history has matched your ship's firepower. You represent a significant shift in the balance of power." "Which is why we're here," Lasky replied. "General Hammond suggested the Tok'ra might have intelligence regarding Anubis's response to his defeat. Our sensors detected his flagship entering hyperspace heavily damaged. We need to know where he went and what he's planning." Another council member stepped forward, a man whose symbiote's presence seemed stronger than most, his eyes glowing almost continuously. "I am Selmak, bonded with Jacob Carter of Earth. My host is Major Carter's father. We have intelligence from our operatives embedded within Anubis's network, and the news is concerning." Carter's expression shifted subtly at the mention of her father, and the relationship between Tok'ra and host was complex, separate beings sharing one body, one life, one consciousness in ways that made even UNSC AI integration look simple. "Dad?" Carter asked quietly. "Hi, Sam," Jacob's voice emerged, noticeably different from Selmak's dual tone, unmistakably human. "Sorry to worry you, but Selmak's right. Anubis didn't retreat to lick his wounds. He went straight to a secret facility we've been trying to locate for months. A research station where he's been studying ancient technology recovered from excavation sites across the galaxy." Selmak resumed control, the dual voice returning. "We believe Anubis intends to accelerate his research program. Your vessel's capabilities have shown him that conventional Goa'uld technology is insufficient. He will seek ancient weapons, defensive systems, and potentially dimensional manipulation technology to counter your advantage." "He knows we came from another reality?" Lasky asked sharply. "He suspects," Malik confirmed. "The energy signature from your arrival was analyzed by his scientists. They cannot explain it using conventional physics, which leads to speculation about dimensional displacement or reality manipulation. Anubis may not understand the specifics, but he knows you represent technology beyond standard parameters. Teal'c's expression darkened. If Anubis gains access to functional ancient weapons, he could threaten not merely Earth, but the entire galaxy. The ancients possessed technology capable of destroying star systems. In the hands of a Goa'uld with Anubis's ambition, we've seen what happens when someone weaponizes ancient tech, Jack interrupted grimly. It doesn't end well. Remember the Antarctic outpost? The weapon that took out Anubis's fleet before? We can't let him get access to more of that. Palmer shifted her stance slightly, her tactical assessment evident in body language. Then we eliminate the facility before he can use it. Hit him while he's vulnerable, destroy his research, and remove the ancient technology from play permanently. A direct assault would require knowing the facility's location, Garshaw said, which the Tok'ra do not possess. Anubis has kept this research station's coordinates secret, even from his most trusted Jaffa. Our operatives have been unable to penetrate that level of security. But we have a lead, Selmak added. One of Anubis's chief scientists, a human named Cabal, taken as host against his will, has been attempting to sabotage the research from within. He managed to transmit fragmentary data before communications were cut off. Coordinates, partial facility schematics, and a warning. Anubis is close to breakthrough with something called Project Astria. Dr. Jackson's eyes widened behind his glasses. Astria, that's ancient Greek for starlight or celestial. If Anubis is using classical Earth languages for his project names, it suggests he's found ancient technology with Earth origin linguistic markers. The ancients did evolve in the Milky Way before ascending. Some of their technology might still carry Earth language interfaces, which means it could be a weapon, a power source, or a transportation system, Carter said, her scientific mind already running through possibilities. The ancients used Earth languages as base code for many interfaces. If Anubis has found intact ancient technology with functional systems, he could leapfrog every other system lord and establish himself as supreme ruler of the galaxy, Garshaw concluded. This is why the Tok'ra are proposing alliance, Captain Lasky. Separately, our forces are insufficient to counter a Goa'uld armed with ancient weapons. But your vessel's capabilities combined with our intelligence network could provide the tactical advantage necessary for surgical strikes. Lasky exchanged glances with Palmer. The Spartan commander's helmet was retracted, revealing an expression that mirrored his own concerns. They were being asked to commit Infinity to offensive operations in unfamiliar territory against an enemy whose capabilities remained unknown. Every UNSC tactical doctrine said this was too risky, but every UNSC tactical doctrine also said you didn't let the enemy build superweapons unopposed. What exactly are you proposing? Lasky asked carefully. Selmak gestured, and a holographic display materialized. Tok'ra technology integrated with Earth systems, showing a star map with several highlighted sectors. We have narrowed Anubis's possible facility locations to 17 systems based on energy readings, supply shipments, and personnel movements. A conventional search would take months and alert Anubis to our interest. But your ship's sensor suite, if it's as advanced as preliminary data suggests, might detect the facility's ancient technology signatures from greater range than Goa'uld sensors. You want us to help you search 17 star systems for a hidden research facility, Palmer said flatly, while potentially being hunted by every system lord who wants to claim Infinity. That's a significant operational risk, Captain. It is, Lasky agreed, but leaving Anubis to complete his research is also a significant risk. Supreme Commander Thor, what's the Asgard position on this? Thor materialized via Tok'ra beaming technology. The two allied species had apparently shared transportation systems. The Asgard support any action that prevents Goa'uld access to ancient weapons. However, I must warn that scanning 17 systems will take time. A time during which Infinity will be away from Earth's orbit, leaving your adopted world more vulnerable. Earth has the Asgard, Jack pointed out, and we're getting 3 new BC-304s in the next year. Plus, we've got those captured Haytaks being retrofitted with human crews. We're not completely defenseless. But we're also not invincible, Carter countered. Sir, Colonel O'Neill, if multiple system lords decide to attack Earth while Infinity is away, then the Asgard will defend, as we have before, Thor said firmly. Captain Lasky, I understand your concern for Earth's safety, but the Takra intelligence is credible, and the threat of ancient weapons in Goa'uld hands supersedes other considerations. The Asgard High Council authorizes me to pledge defensive support for Earth during your absence. Glassman had been studying the star map with growing excitement. Captain, this could also serve our purposes. Anubis's research into ancient technology might include dimensional manipulation theories. If we could access his database, we might find information relevant to getting Infinity home. 2 objectives with 1 operation. Lasky was silent for a long moment, weighing variables and calculating risks with the practiced efficiency that command demanded. 17,000 lives under his responsibility, an entire reality's Earth depending on Infinity's protection, an enemy whose capabilities included technology that could destroy planets, and somewhere, buried in Anubis's research, potentially the key to returning home. Garshaw, he said finally, the Takra want alliance. Here are my terms. We conduct joint operations, but Infinity maintains tactical autonomy. My crew doesn't take orders from the Takra Council. We coordinate and share intelligence, but ultimate operational authority remains with UNSC command structure. Second, any ancient technology we recover gets analyzed by joint teams, Takra, SGC, Asgard, and UNSC scientists working together. No single faction controls the research. Third, if we find evidence of dimensional manipulation technology, that data gets shared immediately with Dr. Glassman's team. Getting my crew home is non-negotiable priority. The Takra Council members exchanged glances, probably internal dialogue between hosts and symbiotes. Finally, Garshaw nodded. Your terms are acceptable, Captain. With a Takra value autonomy and understand your position, we propose the following operational structure. Takra operatives provide intelligence and coordinates. Infinity conducts reconnaissance and sensor sweeps. If we locate the facility, joint forces plan assault with roles determined by tactical assessment. All recovered technology goes to secure facility. We suggest the Alpha Site, a classified SGC installation, for joint analysis. Agreed, Lasky said, extending his hand. Then we have an alliance. Garshaw studied his hand for a moment, then clasped it firmly. The gesture was unmistakably human, despite the alien symbiote within, a reminder that the Takra were as much human as Goa'uld. There is one additional matter, Malik said, his tone carrying unusual hesitation. Captain Lasky, the Takra have a proposal regarding your vessel's crew. We understand you have medical capabilities. Several of our operatives have been compromised during deep cover missions. Their hosts are dying, and without intervention, both host and symbiote will perish. Would you be willing to provide medical assistance? Palmer's hand moved fractionally toward her sidearm before Lasky shot her a warning glance. The Spartan relaxed but remained visibly tense. What kind of medical assistance? Lasky asked carefully. Surgical intervention to repair damage caused by Goa'uld torture devices, Jacob's voice explained, Selmak allowing the human host to speak directly. The Takra have healing technology, but some injuries are beyond our capabilities. Want your ship's medical bay, if it's equipped with advanced surgical systems, might save lives that would otherwise be lost. Lasky looked to Glassman, who'd been monitoring medical reports since they arrived. The scientist nodded slightly. Infinity's medical facilities are equipped for trauma care beyond anything available in this reality, Captain. We could help them. How many patients are we talking about? Lasky asked. 17 hosts, 12 symbiotes, Selmak replied, all injured in service of intelligence gathering against the system lords. Warriors who risked their lives to provide the Takra, and by extension, Earth, with tactical advantages. It was a test, Lasky realized. The Takra were gauging whether UNSC principles of alliance extended to actual sacrifice. Resources, time, and medical personnel dedicated to saving alien lives that had no direct strategic value to Infinity's crew. But they'd also risked their lives fighting the same enemy, and the UNSC had never abandoned allies in need. Bring them aboard, Lasky decided. Dr. Glassman will coordinate with our chief medical officer. We'll do what we can. But doctor, I want full security protocols. No Takra personnel in restricted areas, all medical procedures monitored, and complete transparency on who's coming aboard and why. Understood, Captain, Glassman replied, already pulling up medical manifests on his datapad. Garshaw's expression softened slightly, the first genuine emotion Lasky had seen from the Tok'ra leader. Thank you, Captain. This gesture will be remembered. The Tok'ra do not forget those who honor alliance with action rather than merely words. As the briefing concluded and personnel began coordinating logistics, Lasky found himself walking through the crystalline tunnels with Jack O'Neill, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet during the negotiations. You handled that well, Jack said finally. The Tok'ra can be prickly about authority and control. Getting them to agree to joint operations without demanding command authority is impressive. Experience with ONI, Lasky replied. Office of Naval Intelligence, UNSC's spooks. They're similar to the Tok'ra, secretive, paranoid, convinced they know best, and occasionally right about important things. You learn to negotiate with them or you get frozen out of critical intelligence. Jack grinned. ONI sounds delightful. Wait, we should introduce them to the NID sometime. Watch the bureaucratic turf war from a safe distance. They emerged onto the planet's surface, where the Stargate stood waiting to return them to Earth. The twin suns were setting, painting the desert in deeper shades of red that reminded Lasky uncomfortably of blood. Colonel, Lasky said quietly, can I ask you something off the record? Shoot. How do you do it? Fight a war you can't win through conventional means against enemies who outgun and outnumber you in every engagement. The UNSC faced similar odds during the Covenant War, but we always had hope of technological breakthrough or strategic advantage. You're operating on faith that somehow, every mission, you'll find a way to survive. Jack was silent for a long moment, watching the Stargate's chevrons begin to lock as Carter dialed Earth. You do it because the alternative is unacceptable, he said finally, because 7 billion people are counting on you to stand between them and annihilation, and they don't even know you exist, because your team, the people you trust with your life, are willing to walk through that gate into unknown danger because it's the right thing to do. And because every once in a while, you meet someone like you, Captain. Someone from another reality who could run, who could prioritize their own people's safety, but instead decides to stand and fight for an Earth that isn't even theirs. The Stargate's event horizon burst into shimmering existence. For what it's worth, Jack continued, I'm glad you're here. Not glad you're stranded, that sucks. Hey, but glad we've got Infinity watching our backs. Makes me think maybe we actually have a shot at winning this war. Lasky nodded slowly, acknowledging the weight of that statement. Then let's make sure we don't waste the opportunity. We've got 17 star systems to search and a false god to stop. They stepped through the Stargate together, UNSC Captain and SGC Colonel, allies from different realities united by common purpose. The journey was instantaneous and disorienting, emerging in Stargate Command's gate room where armed security teams stood ready and General Hammond waited with characteristic patience. Captain Lasky, Hammond greeted, I trust the negotiations were productive? Alliance established, General. The Tok'ra will provide intelligence for joint operations against Anubis's research facility. We're also providing medical assistance for injured operatives. I'll need to coordinate with you on logistics and mission parameters. Agreed. My office, 20 minutes. We'll hash out details then. Hammond paused, his expression shifting to something more serious. Captain, while you were negotiating with the Tok'ra, we received a communication through the Stargate. It's unusual. Someone wants to speak with you specifically, claims to have information about how you arrived in our reality. Lasky felt his pulse quicken. Who? That's the unusual part, Hammond replied. The message came from an ancient outpost we recently discovered, and the entity claiming to have information, he paused, choosing words carefully, identifies itself as an ascended being who knew the Forerunners. Troy says it's been waiting for someone like you to arrive. Palmer and the Spartans immediately moved to flanking positions, their weapon systems humming to ready status. But Lasky's mind was racing with different calculations. An ascended being, someone who transcended physical form to exist as pure energy. Someone who claimed knowledge of the Forerunners, the ancient race from Infinity's reality. Someone who might actually know how to send them home. General, Lasky said quietly, I think we need to have that meeting sooner rather than later. Agreed, Hammond replied, because according to the entity's message, if you want to return to your reality, You have approximately 30 days before the dimensional rift that brought you here closes permanently. After that, there's no going back. The words hit like a physical blow. 30 days. 1 month to find a way home or accept permanent exile in an alien reality. Around them, SGC personnel continued their duties, unaware that 17,000 lives had just been placed on a countdown clock. And somewhere in the void, Anubis continued his research, racing toward breakthrough with ancient technology that could remake the galaxy. The war had just become considerably more complicated. The ancient outpost designated P7J-989 existed in a state of elegant decay, its crystalline structures rising from a jungle world like the bones of a long-dead giant. Captain Lasky stood at the base of a tower that stretched toward alien skies, watching his Spartans establish a security perimeter while Dr. Glassman practically vibrated with scientific excitement. "This is extraordinary," Glassman breathed, his scanner recording energy signatures that painted the air in false color overlays. "Captain, the architectural principles alone suggest construction techniques millennia beyond anything we've encountered. And the power readings, there's still an active zero-point energy module somewhere in this structure, generating enough power to run a small city." "Focus, Doctor," Commander Palmer said, her rifle tracking potential threat vectors through the jungle canopy. "We're here to meet an ascended being who claims knowledge of the Forerunners, not catalog alien architecture." SG-1 emerged from the Stargate behind them, accompanied by 2 additional SG teams for security. Colonel O'Neill immediately moved to high ground, his tactical assessment matching Palmer's. Too many blind approaches, too much cover for hostiles, and an overall sense that something was watching from the shadows. "I hate ancient outposts," Jack muttered. "They're always beautiful, always mysterious, and always hiding something that wants to download itself into your brain, or ascend you against your will, or turn you into an energy being. Just once I'd like to find ancient ruins that are just ruins." Daniel was already examining the nearest pillar, in his archaeologist's enthusiasm undimmed by Jack's pessimism. "The inscriptions are definitely ancient, later period, maybe 50,000 years old. They reference something called the Bridge of Realities and warn about those who walk between worlds. Jack, this might actually be a facility designed for dimensional travel." Major Carter had her scanner out, working in tandem with Glassman to map the outpost's energy distribution. "Sirs, I'm reading a massive power concentration 3 levels down. The structure extends underground, at least 7 sublevels, possibly more. Whatever we're here to meet, it's probably down there." Teal'c stood motionless beside the entrance, his staff weapon held in ceremonial guard position. "I sense a presence, ancient, powerful, and observing us with great interest. We are expected." "Well, and that's not ominous at all," Jack said. "Carter, any chance this is a trap? Maybe Anubis figured out we'd come here and set up some kind of ambush." "Negative, sir. The energy signatures are consistent with ancient technology, not Goa'uld. And there's something else. I'm detecting what looks like quantum entanglement patterns, similar to what we saw when Infinity arrived. This outpost might actually have been involved in the dimensional displacement." Lasky felt a chill that had nothing to do with the alien jungle's humidity. "You're saying this facility pulled Infinity into your reality?" "I'm saying it's possible," Carter replied carefully. "The ancients built technology we're still trying to understand. Dimensional manipulation was well within their theoretical capabilities. And if they left automated systems running, then we might have been grabbed by an ancient machine that's been sitting here for 50,000 years, Glassman finished, his excitement giving way to concern. "Captain, that would explain why our slipspace/hyperdrive hybrid intersected with the anomaly. We accidentally triggered an ancient transportation device designed to pull ships from other realities. Which means it might also be able to send us back," Lasky said, "if we can understand how it works and convince whoever, or whatever, is controlling it to reverse the process." A voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, resonating through the air itself with harmonic frequencies that made several personnel grab their heads in discomfort. "Your understanding is incomplete, but approaching accuracy. I am Orlin. I was once ascended, then descended, then ascended again. I have waited here for your arrival since the moment I detected the dimensional incursion. The Spartans immediately formed protective positions around Lasky, their weapons sweeping for targets that didn't exist. Palmer's voice was tight with controlled aggression. "Show yourself. Identify your position." "Commander, stand down," Daniel said quickly, recognizing the name. "Orlan is, well, it's complicated. He's an ascended being who broke the rules by helping humans, got punished by being forced to descend, then died and reascended. He's actually friendly, or was the last time we encountered him." The voice shifted, becoming less overwhelming, more personal. "Dr. Jackson, it pleases me that you remember. And yes, I remain friendly, though that term inadequately describes my current relationship with corporeal beings. Captain Lasky, I apologize for the dramatic presentation. Communicating across the boundary between ascended and physical existence is challenging. May I manifest in a form less distressing to your crew?" "Manifest how?" Lasky asked warily. Light coalesced in the center of the clearing, forming a humanoid figure that solidified into a man in his 30s, wearing simple robes. The being, Orlan, looked entirely human except for eyes that seemed to contain distant galaxies. "Better?" Orlan asked, his voice now perfectly normal, despite the otherworldly presence radiating from him. "I've chosen this form because it was my appearance when I last interacted with SG-1. Familiarity breeds comfort. Or so I've observed." "You said you've been waiting for us," Lasky said, forcing himself to remain calm despite confronting what was essentially a god in physical form. "You know why we're here?" "I know what brought you here," Orlan corrected gently. "This facility, the Bridge of Realities as the ancients named it, was designed as an experiment in cross-dimensional observation and limited transportation. The ancients believed that understanding other realities might provide insights into ascension and the nature of consciousness itself. They built several such facilities, though most were decommissioned millennia ago." He gestured and holographic displays materialized around them, technical schematics beyond anything in UNSC or SGC databases, showing dimensional mathematics that made even Carter and Glassman look lost. "In this particular facility remained active in automated mode," Orlan continued. "It scans for dimensional instabilities and occasionally samples technology from adjacent realities to study alternative evolutionary paths. Your vessel, Captain, triggered its protocols when your experimental slipspace/hyperdrive hybrid created a resonance pattern the facility interpreted as a dimensional beacon. It thought we were trying to contact it," Glassman said, understanding dawning. "Our hybrid drive's energy signature matched whatever frequency the ancients used for cross-dimensional communication. So it grabbed us. Precisely. And in doing so, created a temporary rift between your reality and this one, a rift that is currently collapsing at predictable rate. In approximately 28 days, the dimensional boundary will restabilize, and then the path home will close permanently." Palmer stepped forward, her Spartan discipline barely containing obvious frustration. "Then send us back. You're an ascended being. You have power beyond our comprehension. Open the rift, return infinity to our reality, and let us go home." Orlan's expression turned genuinely regretful. "I cannot. The rules governing ascended beings prohibit direct intervention in mortal affairs to such degree. I can observe. I can communicate. I can even manifest physically for brief periods. But I cannot use ascended powers to fundamentally alter reality or transport entire vessels across dimensional boundaries. The others, my fellow ascended beings, would intervene, forcibly strip me of my ascended state, and ensure that technology could never be used." "That's convenient," Jack said with heavy sarcasm. "So you can watch us struggle but can't actually help. Where have I heard that before?" "Oh, right. Every time we've dealt with ascended beings. You folks have a real problem with actually doing anything useful." "Colonel O'Neill, I understand your frustration," Orlan replied with patience that suggested he'd heard similar complaints countless times. "But I am helping within the constraints I face. I can provide information about the facility's operation. I can guide you toward understanding the technology. And I can warn you of the challenges you'll face in attempting to reverse the dimensional displacement." "What challenges?" Lasky asked. Orlan's holographic displays shifted, showing complex energy patterns and what looked like star charts from multiple realities overlaid impossibly. "First, Activating the bridge requires massive energy input, approximately 3 ZPMs operating at full capacity. The facility's current power reserves are insufficient. Second, the dimensional coordinates must be calibrated precisely to your home reality. Even minor errors could send you to wrong universe entirely, or worse, strand you in dimensional void between realities. Third, the activation sequence requires ancient gene compatibility and knowledge of Lantean control protocols. Carter was already analyzing the data, her scientific mind racing. Sir, this is actually good news. We've encountered ZPM technology before. We even have one, partially depleted, powering the Antarctic outpost. If we could locate 2 more and transport them here. We know where several ZPMs are located, Daniel interjected. The problem is they're either depleted, are in use powering critical ancient facilities, or in Goa'uld hands. Getting 3 fully charged ZPMs in one place would require either extraordinary luck or significant combat operations. Anubis has one, Teal'c stated. He acquired it from the planet Abydos before its destruction. It powers his mothership's enhanced shields and weapons. It is the source of his technological superiority over other system lords. Orlan nodded confirmation. The Goa'uld you call Anubis possesses a fully functional ZPM. Additionally, his research facility, Project Astria, is attempting to reverse engineer ancient technology, including dimensional manipulation principles. He seeks to create controlled rifts between realities to access technology from infinite parallel universes. The implications hit like a physical blow. He's trying to do what this facility did to us, Lasky said slowly, but deliberately and repeatedly. He wants to raid other realities for technology. Correct. And if he succeeds, he will become unstoppable. Imagine a Goa'uld system lord with access to technology from countless realities. Weapons, defenses, knowledge that could make him godlike in truth rather than mere pretense. He would conquer this galaxy within years, then potentially expand to others. Palmer's tactical assessment was immediate. Then we have convergent objectives. We need ZPMs to go home. Anubis has one at his research facility where he's developing dimensional technology. We infiltrate, acquire the ZPM, destroy his research, and return here to activate the bridge. A strategy of elegant simplicity, Orlan said, also nearly impossible to execute. Anubis's facility is heavily defended, its location known only to his most trusted servants, and any assault would require penetrating defenses designed by a being with partial knowledge of ancient technology. Many would die in such attempt. Many have already died fighting the Goa'uld, Teal'c countered. If Captain Lasky's mission to return home can simultaneously prevent Anubis from becoming supreme power in this galaxy, then those deaths would serve dual purpose. The Free Jaffa would support such operation, as would the Takra, came a familiar dual voice. Malik materialized via Asgard beaming technology, accompanied by Garshaw and 2 other Takra operatives. We have been monitoring this conversation through our intelligence networks. The Takra Council believes this represents our best opportunity to eliminate Anubis's threat. Yes, we will commit resources to locating his facility and supporting assault operations. Supreme Commander Thor beamed in next, his small form somehow commanding attention, despite being dwarfed by the Spartans. The Asgard concur. Anubis's dimensional research represents existential threat. We will provide technological support and fleet assets to mission planning. However, I must note that success probability remains low, estimated at 17% based on available intelligence. I've won with worse odds, Lasky said, though 17% made even his optimistic assessment look bleak. But we're missing critical information. Orlan, you said you can guide us within your constraints. Can you help us locate Anubis's facility? The ascended being's expression turned troubled. I cannot directly reveal information obtained through ascended observation. However, I can suggest that careful examination of this facility's records might provide insights. The Bridge of Realities maintains logs of all dimensional scans conducted over 50,000 years. If Anubis's research has created dimensional resonances, and it certainly has, those resonances would be logged in the database. Carter's eyes lit up. You're saying the ancient computers here have recorded Anubis's facility, creating dimensional disturbances. We just need to access the database and search for recent anomalous readings. I am saying the database exists and contains extensive information about dimensional phenomena throughout this galaxy, Orlin replied carefully, clearly walking a fine line between helping and violating ascended rules. What conclusions you draw from that information is entirely your decision. Daniel was already moving toward the facility entrance. Then what are we waiting for? Let's get into those archives and find Anubis before he finds us. The group descended into the ancient outpost's lower levels, following crystalline corridors that pulsed with bioluminescent light. The architecture reminded Lasky uncomfortably of Forerunner installations. The same aesthetic of function merged with beauty, the same sense of technology so advanced it seemed like art. They emerged into a control room that made even Infinity's bridge look primitive. Holographic interfaces floated in three-dimensional space, displaying information in ancient script that shifted and evolved as if alive. At the room's center stood a control console that Carter immediately recognized. "That's a repository interface," she said with a mixture of excitement and dread, "similar to the one in Antarctica that downloaded ancient knowledge into Jack's mind. But this one appears designed for controlled data access rather than emergency download." Glassman approached the console carefully, his scanner recording every detail. "Captain, accessing this could provide information about dimensional travel that might help us even without the ZPMs. But ancient technology requires the ATA gene, either natural or artificial. Do we have anyone on the team who's compatible?" "I possess the gene," Orlin said. "Or more precisely, I can interface with ancient technology through my ascended nature. However, I cannot operate the systems for you. That would constitute direct intervention. But if someone with even partial ATA gene activation were to attempt access, I could ensure the safety protocols function properly to prevent harmful downloads." Jack sighed heavily. "That sounds like volunteer territory. And since I've already had my brain turned into Ancient Central twice, I guess I'm the logical choice. What could possibly go wrong?" "Colonel, you don't have to," Carter began. "Yeah, I do," Jack interrupted. "We need this intel, and I'm the only one here who survived the repository download before. Besides, how bad can it be?" "The last time you accessed ancient knowledge, you nearly died," Daniel reminded him. "And you started building complex devices you didn't understand and speaking ancient languages fluently. It took the Asgard to save you." "And they're right here," Jack said, gesturing to Thor. "Supreme Commander, you folks still have that fancy brain vacuuming technology that pulled the ancient knowledge out of my head?" "We do," Thor confirmed, "and I am prepared to intervene if the repository begins overwhelming your neural pathways. However, Colonel O'Neill, I must warn you that each exposure to ancient knowledge increases the risk of permanent neurological changes. You may not survive a third encounter." "Noted. Let's do this before I have time to think about how stupid it is." Jack approached the console, placing his hands on the interface crystals. The room filled with light, holographic displays erupting around him in cascading patterns of ancient text and mathematical formulas. His eyes glazed over, his expression shifting to something distant and otherworldly. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that weren't entirely human. The database contains records of dimensional phenomena spanning 50 millennia, cross-referencing recent anomalous readings with known system lord territorial claims. Anubis's facility is generating distinctive energy signature consistent with experimental dimensional rift generation. Location identified: planet designated P4X639, Calliam system, 14 light-years from Earth. Facility is underground, shielded against orbital detection, defended by Kull warriors and advanced ancient-derived weapon systems. Carter was frantically recording everything, her hands flying across her own tablet. "Jack, can you access schematics, defensive layouts, anything that might help us plan an assault?" Jack's head tilted, his ancient enhanced mind processing information at impossible speeds. "Schematics available. Facility spans 17 sub-levels. Primary research conducted at level 14. ZPM is powering containment systems for dimensional rift experiments. Warning, unstable rift generation in progress. Anubis is attempting forced dimensional breach within 72 hours. If successful, the breach could destabilize local spacetime and create cascade effect endangering entire star system." 72 hours, Lasky repeated, his tactical mind immediately calculating timelines. That's our window. We have 3 days to plan and execute an assault, acquire the ZPM, and stop Anubis from tearing a hole in reality. Orlan's expression had turned grave. Captain Lasky, I must warn you, if Anubis succeeds in creating an uncontrolled dimensional rift, the consequences extend beyond your immediate concern. Such breach could attract the attention of beings from other realities, entities that make the Goa'uld look like children playing with toys. The ancients abandoned this research precisely because they discovered there are things in the dimensional void that should never be allowed into our reality. Things like what? Palmer asked, her weapon suddenly feeling inadequate. Things the ancients had no name for, Orlan replied quietly. Things that exist between realities, feeding on dimensional energy and consuming entire universes. Opening uncontrolled rifts is like sending out a beacon saying, "Here is fresh reality to devour." The ancients learned this lesson at terrible cost and sealed their dimensional research away. And Anubis, in his arrogance, is about to make the same mistake, Teal'c said. We must stop him, not merely to acquire the ZPM, but to prevent catastrophe that could threaten all life in this galaxy. Jack's eyes suddenly rolled back, and he collapsed. Thor immediately beamed him to the Asgard medical bay aboard one of the O'Neill-class ships in orbit, his small form disappearing in a flash of light even as he worked to save the Colonel's life. Carter looked stricken, but she held herself together through iron discipline. We have the coordinates, we have schematics, and we have approximately 70 hours before Anubis either succeeds or fails spectacularly. General Hammond needs to know immediately. Lasky activated his comm, broadcasting to Infinity in orbit. Roland, prep the ship for combat operations. Coordinate with SGC and Takra intelligence. We've got a target location and a very narrow operational window. I want strike plans ready in 6 hours. Acknowledged, Captain, the AI replied. Should I inform the crew that we found our ticket home? Tell them we found where the ticket is, Lasky corrected. Getting it is going to be considerably harder. But yes, make sure they know. If we pull this off, we're going home. As the team prepared to return to the Stargate, Orlan's form began to fade, his time in physical manifestation apparently reaching its limit. Captain Lasky, the ascended being said, his voice growing distant, I have done what I can within the rules that bind me. The path forward is yours to walk. But know this, the ancients believe that some barriers between realities exist for good reason. In choosing to cross back, you may face challenges we cannot foresee. Are you certain this is the course you wish to pursue? Lasky looked at his team, Palmer and her Spartans, Glassman with his scientific curiosity, the SGC personnel who'd become allies despite coming from different realities. He thought of 17,000 crew members aboard Infinity, all waiting for the chance to go home. And he thought of the Goa'uld who would stop at nothing to prevent their escape. We didn't come this far to give up now, he said firmly. We're going home, Orlan, and if Anubis stands in our way, we'll go through him. Orlan smiled, a strange, sad expression that suggested he'd seen this determination before and knew where it led. Then may fortune favor your courage, Captain. You will need both in abundance. The ascended being vanished, leaving only a faint shimmer in the air and the sense that something profound had just shifted in the balance of the galaxy. The countdown had begun. 70 hours to stop Anubis, 70 hours to save a reality, 70 hours to get home. The mission had never been more clear, or more impossible. The briefing room aboard the UNSC Infinity had never been designed to host this many representatives from this many different civilizations. Captain Lasky stood at the head of the holographic tactical display, watching as the room filled with an alliance that would have seemed impossible a week ago. General Hammond and SG-1 occupied one side of the table, Jack having recovered from his ancient knowledge exposure, though Thor remained nearby with monitoring equipment just in case. The Takra delegation sat opposite, Garshaw and Selmak conferring quietly in their distinctive dual voices. Commander Palmer and her Spartans lined the walls in full MJOLNIR armor, their presence both reassuring and intimidating. Dr. Glassman worked furiously at a side console alongside Major Carter, our other two scientists having formed a rapid friendship based on mutual appreciation for impossible physics. And at the far end of the room, holographically projected from his ship, Supreme Commander Thor observed with those large, knowing eyes that suggested the Asgard had seen civilizations rise and fall and were merely waiting to see which category humanity would occupy. "Ladies, gentlemen, and allied species," Lasky began, calling the room to order. "We have 70 hours to plan and execute the most critical operation any of us have faced. Roland, display the target." The holographic projector activated, showing a three-dimensional representation of planet P4X639, a barren, airless world orbiting a dying red star. The planet's surface was pockmarked with craters and radiation scarring, making it look like the last place anyone would build a research facility. "Which is exactly why Anubis chose it," Carter explained, highlighting several subsurface features. "The radiation and magnetic interference make orbital scans nearly impossible. According to the ancient database, the facility extends 17 levels underground, built into a natural cave system that Anubis has reinforced with Naquata-enhanced armor and ancient-derived shielding." The display zoomed in, revealing complex schematics that made even the Spartans shift uncomfortably. The facility was a fortress, multiple defensive layers, redundant security systems, and what looked like enough firepower to hold off a small fleet. "Primary objective," Lasky continued, "is acquiring the ZPM powering Anubis's dimensional research. Secondary objective is destroying his research data and preventing the uncontrolled dimensional breach. Tertiary objective, if possible, is eliminating Anubis himself and removing him as a threat permanently. The ZPM is located on level 14, Glassman added, pulling up detailed schematics. It's integrated into what appears to be a containment system for dimensional rift generation. The good news is that if we can disconnect it without destabilizing the containment, we might be able to extract it intact. The bad news is that doing so requires someone with knowledge of ancient technology and approximately 15 minutes of uninterrupted work while surrounded by hostile forces. "Define hostile forces," Palmer requested, her tactical assessment already calculating force requirements. Teal'c stood, his imposing frame commanding attention. "Anubis's facility is defended by Goa'uld warriors, super soldiers engineered with ancient knowledge and equipped with armor that renders them nearly invulnerable to energy weapons. They do not feel pain, they do not surrender, and they will fight until destroyed. I have faced them in combat. They are formidable." "How many?" Palmer asked. "Intelligence suggests approximately 200 Goa'uld warriors stationed at the facility," Malik replied, his Takra eyes flashing as symbiote and host shared information. "Additionally, standard Jaffa forces numbering perhaps 3,000, automated defense systems, and Anubis himself may be present. Our operatives have confirmed his personal Hatak is in orbit around P4X-639. Jack whistled low. "So we're looking at assaulting a hardened underground bunker defended by invulnerable super soldiers, 3,000 zealot warriors, and possibly a half-ascended Goa'uld with ancient knowledge. I've had worse odds, but I can't remember when." "The Goa'uld warriors are not invulnerable," Carter corrected, pulling up technical data. "We developed a weapon specifically to counter them, a modified energy disruptor that targets the ancient technology in their armor. It's effective, but it requires direct line of sight and multiple shots to guarantee a kill. We've manufactured approximately 40 of these weapons, not nearly enough for the scale of this operation. But combined with UNSC firepower, it might be sufficient," Palmer countered. "Captain, our MA5 series assault rifles fire armor-piercing rounds at high velocity. If the Goa'uld warrior armor is designed primarily to deflect energy weapons, kinetic penetrators might bypass their defenses entirely." Glassman looked up from his calculations. "That's actually brilliant, Commander. Ancient shielding technology focuses on dispersing energy across large surface areas. Concentrated kinetic impact, especially at UNSC ammunition velocities, would overwhelm the dispersal systems. The armor might still provide protection, but not invulnerability." "Then we have a tactical advantage they won't expect," Lasky said. "But we still need an infiltration plan. Garshaw, can the Takra get us inside without triggering every alarm in the facility?" The Takra leader's expression suggested she'd been waiting for this question. "We have an operative embedded within Anubis's research staff, a human scientist named Dr. Rhea Varric, taken as Goa'uld host 3 years ago. The symbiote Tanith was a Tok'ra plant who successfully infiltrated Anubis's organization. They have access to level 14 and can disable selective security systems for approximately 12 minutes before automated failsafes detect the intrusion. 12 minutes, Palmer repeated. That's a tight window, but workable. We'll need multiple strike teams hitting simultaneously, one for the ZPM extraction, one to secure the exit route, one to plant demolition charges and ensure the research data is destroyed. Captain, I recommend Spartan-led teams for all three objectives. Agreed, Lasky said, but we can't do this with just Spartans. We need SG personnel familiar with ancient technology, Tok'ra operatives who know the facility layout, and possibly Jaffa warriors who understand Goa'uld defensive protocols. This needs to be a joint operation in the truest sense. Hammond nodded slowly. Captain, I can authorize SG-1 for this mission, along with SG-3 and SG-5. That gives you 3 experienced teams totaling 24 personnel. Colonel Reynolds is still recovering from his injuries, but he's cleared for duty and eager to get back in the fight. The Free Jaffa will contribute warriors, Teal'c stated. Brutak, my mentor, has assembled a strike force of 50 elite Jaffa who have fought Cold Warriors before and survived. They understand the risks and volunteer freely for this mission. The Tok'ra will provide 6 operatives in addition to Dr. Varric, Selmak added, Jacob Carter's voice emerging to emphasize the personal stake. Sam, I know you're going on this mission. I want to be there with you. Carter's expression softened briefly. Dad, you don't have to. Yes, I do, Jacob interrupted gently. You're my daughter, and this is the most dangerous operation SGC has ever attempted. I'm not letting you go alone. Thor's holographic image flickered as the Asgard commander processed tactical data. The Asgard will provide beaming technology for insertion and extraction, as well as orbital support if needed. However, I must warn you, Anubis's Hatak possesses shields we cannot easily penetrate. If he detects your presence and brings his mothership to bear, your ground forces will face bombardment we cannot prevent. Then we need a distraction, Lasky said, his tactical mind already forming the plan's framework. Something big enough to keep Anubis's attention focused away from the facility while we conduct the infiltration. Roland, what's Infinity's current combat readiness? The AI's avatar materialized on the holotank, looking unusually serious. 94%, Captain. Repairs from our engagement with Anubis's fleet are complete. Munitions have been restocked via SGC fabrication facilities, and crew morale is high. Everyone knows this mission determines whether we go home or stay stranded. We're ready for whatever you need. Good, because I need Infinity to engage Anubis's mothership in direct combat while the ground teams infiltrate the facility. Draw his full attention, make him commit to ship-to-ship engagement. Keep him focused on us instead of looking down at his research station. Palmer's helmet turned toward him sharply. Sir, that's putting the entire ship at risk. If Anubis has upgraded his weapons since our last encounter, if he's installed additional ancient technology, then we'll adapt, Lasky interrupted firmly. Commander, I know the risks, but we can't ask ground teams to infiltrate that facility while Anubis's mothership is free to intervene. Someone has to keep him busy, and Infinity is the only ship in this alliance with the firepower to do it. The captain is correct, Thor said. An Asgard vessel could provide distraction, but Anubis knows our capabilities and would not view us as sufficient threat to commit fully. Infinity, however, represents unknown factor. He will want to test your ship's limits, to study your technology, to prove his superiority. His arrogance will work in our favor. Jack leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. So let me see if I've got this straight. Infinity picks a fight with Anubis in orbit, drawing his full attention and firepower. Meanwhile, multiple strike teams, Spartans, SG units, Tok'ra operatives, and Jaffa warriors beam down to the facility using Asgard technology, infiltrate 17 levels of hardened defenses, fight through 200 invulnerable supersoldiers and 3,000 fanatical Jaffa, extract a ZPM from an active dimensional rift experiment without blowing everyone to Kingdom Come, plant enough explosives to level the facility, and extract before Anubis realizes what's happening. All in under 70 hours with 12 minutes of actual infiltration time before alarms trigger. That's correct, Lasky confirmed. Just wanted to make sure I understood how insane this plan is, Jack said. Okay, I'm in. When do we leave? Despite the tension, several people smiled. Jack's absolute refusal to be intimidated by impossible odds was apparently legendary. We leave in 60 hours, Lasky decided. That gives us time to train the joint teams, coordinate communications protocols, and ensure everyone understands their role. Major Carter, Dr. Glassman, I need you both working on the ZPM extraction procedure. Figure out exactly how to disconnect it safely and what tools we'll need. Commander Palmer, you're in charge of strike team organization and training. Get our people integrated with SGC, Takra, and Jaffa forces. I want everyone drilling together until they can operate as a single unit. Understood, sir, Palmer replied, already making notes on her tactical pad. General Hammond, I need official authorization from SGC Command, Lasky continued. This operation will put Earth's premier SG teams at extreme risk. I won't proceed without your explicit approval. Hammond stood, his weathered features set in determined lines. Captain Lasky, when the Stargate program began, we knew we were fighting a war we couldn't win through conventional means. We've survived through courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to take calculated risks when the stakes demanded it. This mission, stopping Anubis from weaponizing dimensional travel while giving your crew a chance to go home, represents everything the Stargate program stands for. You have my authorization and my full support. Then we're committed, Lasky said. 60 hours to preparation, 12 minutes to execution, one chance to stop a false god from destroying reality, and one chance to get my crew home. Let's make it count. The briefing broke up, personnel dispersing to their assigned tasks with the controlled urgency that came from knowing the clock was ticking. But as the room cleared, Lasky found himself approached by Daniel Jackson, who'd been unusually quiet during the planning session. Captain, can I speak with you privately? The archaeologist asked. They moved to a quiet corner of the briefing room while the holographic displays continued cycling through facility schematics. Dr. Jackson, Lasky said, what's on your mind? Daniel removed his glasses, cleaning them with nervous energy that suggested he was organizing difficult thoughts. I've been thinking about what Orlin said, about barriers between realities existing for good reason, and I've been studying the ancient records about why they abandoned dimensional research. Captain, there's something in those files that troubles me. What? The ancients didn't just seal their dimensional facilities because they accidentally attracted dangerous entities from other realities, Daniel explained, his academic precision giving way to genuine concern. They sealed them because successful dimensional travel had unexpected consequences. Every time they pulled something from another reality into ours, they created what they called resonance debt, a kind of cosmic imbalance that had to be corrected. Corrected how? Lasky asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. By removing equivalent mass energy from our reality to balance the equation, Daniel said quietly. When the ancient facility grabbed Infinity, it created a massive resonance debt. If you return home without correcting that debt, this reality might suffer catastrophic consequences. Stars going nova, planets disappearing, entire sections of space-time destabilizing. The ancients' mathematics suggest the debt must be paid within 30 days, or the imbalance cascades out of control. Lasky felt his stomach drop. You're saying that when Infinity goes home, something of equivalent mass energy has to be removed from this reality to balance the equation? Something like, what? A planet, a star, lives. The equations aren't that specific, Daniel admitted. But yes, the imbalance has to be corrected. And the ancients discovered this through experimentation and immediately sealed all their dimensional research because they couldn't find a way around the fundamental law. Reality itself demands balance. What comes in must be balanced by what goes out. Does anyone else know this? Lasky asked. Not yet. I just finished translating the relevant sections. Captain, I'm not trying to suggest you shouldn't go home. Your crew deserves that chance. But we need to understand the full consequences before we proceed. If sending Infinity back means destroying a star system in this reality, or causing billions of deaths through cascading space-time instability, Lasky was silent for a long moment, his mind racing through implications and impossible choices. 17,000 lives under his command. 7 billion people on this reality's Earth, and countless more across the galaxy who would be affected by catastrophic space-time destabilization. Can the debt be paid deliberately, he asked? Can we choose what gets removed from this reality instead of letting it happen randomly? Daniel's expression suggested he'd been hoping Lasky would ask that question. Theoretically, yes. If we understand the mathematics well enough, we could designate specific mass energy to be transferred when infinity crosses back. It would have to be equivalent mass, roughly the same size and composition as your ship, and it would have to be something we're willing to sacrifice. Like Anubis's research facility, Lasky said slowly, understanding dawning. We trigger the transfer using the facility itself as the balancing mass energy. 17 levels of underground complex, all the Goa'uld technology, possibly Anubis's mothership if we can lure it close enough to the dimensional rift when we activate the bridge. We turn the resonance debt into a weapon. Exactly, Daniel confirmed. But Captain, it means timing the extraction perfectly. We'd need to activate the Bridge of Realities, begin Infinity's transfer, and simultaneously trigger the facility's dimensional rift to destabilize in a controlled manner that designates it as the balancing mass. The margin for error is essentially zero. And if it goes wrong, we could destroy both realities, Lasky finished, or get stranded between them permanently, or successfully return home while leaving this reality to collapse. No pressure. I'm sorry to add another layer of complexity to an already impossible mission, Daniel said. But I thought you deserved to know the full picture before making decisions that affect everyone. Lasky nodded slowly. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. This information changes things. I need to brief Dr. Glassman and Major Carter immediately. They'll need to integrate this into the extraction calculations. And I need to think very carefully about whether I can ask my crew to risk everything on a plan with zero margin for error. For what it's worth, Captain, I think you're making the right choice pursuing this. The alternative, Anubis weaponizing dimensional travel, would be catastrophic. At least this way, we have a chance at multiple objectives. Stopping him, sending you home, and preventing reality collapse. It's just going to require perfect execution. Story of my life, Lasky muttered. Seems like every operation since the Covenant War has required perfect execution under impossible circumstances. Why should this be any different? He activated his comm, broadcasting to key personnel. Dr. Glassman, Major Carter, Commander Palmer, I need you in briefing room Alpha immediately. We have new information that affects mission parameters. As they waited for the others to arrive, Lasky looked at the holographic display showing Anubis's facility, soon to be either the key to getting home or the site of the most spectacular failure in UNSC history. Dr. Jackson, he said quietly, how confident are you in the ancient mathematics? Is there any chance they were wrong about the resonance debt? Daniel's expression was apologetic. The ancients rarely made mistakes in physics, Captain. Their understanding of fundamental reality exceeded anything we can currently comprehend. If they said dimensional travel creates cosmic debt that must be balanced, I believe them, which means we either find a way to balance it deliberately, or we accept that going home will have devastating consequences we can't control. Then we find a way, Lasky said with determination that came from years of making impossible work. We've come too far to fail now. And if the price of going home is making sure Anubis and his research facility become the balancing sacrifice, then that's exactly what we'll do. The briefing room doors opened, admitting Palmer, Glassman, and Carter. All three looked concerned. They'd clearly picked up on the urgency in Lasky's transmission. We have a problem, Lasky began without preamble. And we have approximately 58 hours to solve it. Dr. Jackson, explain the resonance debt to them. Dr. Glassman, Major Carter, as soon as you understand the problem, I need solutions, because we're not just stealing a ZPM anymore. We're engineering a controlled dimensional collapse that has to happen with perfect timing while we're fighting our way through 3,000 hostiles and escaping before everything explodes. Glassman paled slightly. Captain, that's beyond complex. That's bordering on impossible. I know, Lasky replied, but impossible is what we do. So let's figure out how to make it work. The planning session that followed stretched through the night, voices rising and falling as scientists argued mathematics, tacticians calculated timing, and engineers designed solutions to problems that shouldn't exist. And in orbit above, the UNSC Infinity hung in the void, her crew preparing for the mission that would either send them home or strand them permanently in a reality where gods were real and ancient mysteries waited to destroy the unwary. 58 hours remained. The countdown continued. The hyperspace window collapsed, and the UNSC Infinity emerged into the Kalyam system like a predator announcing its presence. Captain Lasky stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display update as sensors painted the battle space in cold, analytical detail. Planet P4X639 hung ahead, barren, radiation-scarred, and utterly hostile to life, and in orbit around it, exactly where intelligence predicted, Anubis's mothership waited like a golden monument to divine arrogance. "Contact," Roland reported, his avatar standing rigid with combat protocols active. "One Hatak-class mothership, enhanced configuration consistent with Anubis's flagship. She's detected us and powering weapons. Reading massive energy spike. Captain, those are the ancient derived systems. He's preparing to fire." "Shields to maximum," Lasky ordered, his voice calm despite the adrenaline flooding his system. "Weapons? I want firing solutions on that mothership, but hold fire until I give the word. Helm, evasive pattern Sigma. Keep us moving. Don't give him a stationary target." On the planet's surface, invisible to orbital sensors beneath 17 levels of rock and shielding, Commander Palmer crouched in the darkness of a Goa'uld supply tunnel with her strike force assembled around her. 4 Spartans in MJOLNIR armor, SG-1 with their characteristic mix of military precision and improvised tactics, 6 Takra operatives including Selmac/Jacob Carter, and 50 Free Jaffa warriors led by the legendary Bratak, whose weathered face carried the confidence of someone who'd survived a century of combat. "Strike teams, sound off," Palmer transmitted on their encrypted channel, her heads-up display showing friendly positions throughout the facility's outer levels. "Strike Team Alpha, in position," came Colonel Reynolds' voice from SG-3. His team had the hardest job, fighting through to level 14 to secure the ZPM extraction point. "Strike Team Bravo, ready," Teal confirmed. His Jaffa warriors were tasked with creating chaos in the upper levels, drawing cool warriors away from the primary objective. "Strike Team Charlie, standing by," reported the lead Takra operative. Their role was planting demolition charges at critical structural points to ensure the facility's complete destruction. "All teams acknowledge," Palmer said. "Dr. Varick, you're up. Disable those security systems and get us our 12 minutes. Deep within Level 14's research section, Dr. Rhea Varick stood before a Goa'uld security console, her hands trembling slightly as Tanith, her Takra symbiote, fed her the access codes that would doom Anubis's ambitions. The scientist in her appreciated the elegant complexity of the systems she was about to sabotage. The prisoner forced to serve a false god for 3 years welcomed the chance to strike back. She entered the final command sequence. Throughout the facility, carefully selected security systems went offline. Motion sensors in specific corridors, automated defense turrets guarding critical junctions, communications relays that would have alerted Central Command to unauthorized access. 12 minutes of invisibility purchased with 3 years of patient infiltration. "Go!" Palmer ordered. The strike teams moved as one coordinated organism, decades of military training across multiple realities flowing together in synchronized assault. Spartans led with overwhelming firepower, their MA-5 assault rifles cutting through surprise Jaffa guards with brutal efficiency. SG teams provided tactical support, their knowledge of Goa'uld facilities allowing them to navigate faster than should have been possible. Takra operatives moved like ghosts, their internal symbiotes granting enhanced reflexes and awareness. And the Free Jaffa fought with the righteous fury of slaves who'd broken their chains and refused to ever kneel again. On Infinity's bridge, the situation was considerably less coordinated. Anubis's mothership had opened fire with everything it possessed. Staff cannon bolts the size of trucks streaked across the void, slamming into Infinity's shields with megaton-level impacts. The ancient energy lance, the weapon that had nearly crippled them in their first engagement, charged with golden fury. "Evasive!" Lasky shouted. Infinity rolled with impossible grace for a ship her size. her maneuvering thrusters firing in coordinated bursts that threw her clear of the Lance's firing path. The beam carved through the space she'd occupied milliseconds before, its energy discharge creating interference patterns visible across the electromagnetic spectrum. "Return fire," Lasky commanded. "Mac batteries full spread. Target his shield generators and power distribution nodes. I want that ship crippled, not destroyed. We need it intact for the resonance balancing." 4 Mac rounds fired in rapid sequence, with their electromagnetically accelerated projectiles crossing the distance at 4% of light speed. Anubis's shields flared brilliant gold, ancient technology straining to dissipate kinetic energy that modern physics said shouldn't be survivable. The first round penetrated, creating a visible breach in the energy envelope. The second followed through the gap, slamming into the pyramid's hull and carving a crater that vented atmosphere and debris. The third and fourth struck different sections, and suddenly Anubis's flagship was bleeding. But the system lord wasn't finished. The mothership began launching death gliders and Al-Kesh bombers, hundreds of them, their golden hulls catching starlight as they swarmed toward infinity like angry insects. "Air Wing, you're up," Lasky transmitted. "Clear those fighters before they get into bombing range." Longsword interceptors screamed out of Infinity's launch bays, their pilots eager for the fight. The void erupted into a furious dogfight, UNSC fighters with superior speed and firepower against Goa'uld numbers and fanatical determination. And on the planet below, the strike teams hit their first major obstacle, the Goa'uld warriors. Palmer rounded a corner and came face-to-face with 5 of Anubis's super soldiers. They stood over 7 feet tall in black armor that seemed to absorb light, their helmets featuring glowing red visors that suggested something inhuman resided within. Each carried a wrist-mounted energy weapon that could punch through standard body armor with a single shot. "Contact!" Palmer shouted, her rifle already firing. The armor-piercing round struck the lead Goa'uld warrior center mass, and to Palmer's satisfaction, the ancient armor cracked. The warrior stumbled but didn't fall, its enhanced physiology keeping it combat effective, despite injuries that would have killed a normal human. "Concentrate fire," Palmer ordered. "Overlapping fields, don't let them close distance." The Spartans opened up in perfect coordination, their training and augmented reflexes allowing them to maintain accuracy while moving and dodging return fire. The Goa'uld warriors advanced through the barrage like unstoppable machines, their armor ablating under sustained kinetic impact, but their tactical programming driving them forward. Jack O'Neill stepped around the corner with the Goa'uld disruptor weapon Major Carter had designed, its bulky form looking almost comical compared to the P-90 he normally carried. He fired, and the specialized energy beam struck a Goa'uld warrior directly in the chest. The warrior convulsed, its armor systems overloading as the disruptor targeted the ancient technology that animated it. After 3 seconds of sustained fire, the super soldier collapsed and didn't rise. "One down," Jack said grimly. "Only 199 more to go." "I really hate these things." The Jaffa warriors joined the fight, their staff weapons and Zat guns adding firepower. But the Goa'uld warriors were adapting, their tactical programs analyzing the threat and adjusting approach vectors. 2 of them activated personal teleportation devices, ancient technology that allowed short-range displacement, and materialized directly among the Jaffa forces. The carnage was immediate. Goa'uld warriors in melee range were devastating, their enhanced strength allowing them to tear through Jaffa armor like paper. 3 warriors fell before Teal'c intervened, his staff weapon firing at point-blank range, while Brutak coordinated a fighting withdrawal. "We need to keep moving," Carter shouted over the weapon's fire. "Every second we're delayed is 1 less second before alarms trigger." Palmer threw a fragmentation grenade, its explosion buying them 3 seconds of breathing room. "Alpha team, push through. Bravo team, hold this position and keep these things busy. Charlie team, proceed to demolition points." The strike force split, each element pursuing its assigned objective, while the facility slowly woke to the invasion. Automated defenses began activating, the one's doctor. Averic couldn't disable without triggering immediate alerts. Energy barriers sprang up across corridors. Automated turrets descended from ceiling mountings. And deeper within the facility, more Goa'uld warriors began moving toward the intrusion points. On level 14, Colonel Reynolds and Strike Team Alpha reached the ZPM chamber and stopped cold. The room was vast, a cathedral of ancient technology, where a massive cylindrical device hummed with barely contained power. The ZPM itself glowed with inner light, feeding energy into a ring-shaped structure that looked uncomfortably similar to a Stargate. But where a Stargate would show a stable event horizon, this device displayed a roiling maelstrom of colors that shouldn't exist in normal reality. Purples that hurt to look at, greens that seemed to fold through dimensions, and a darkness at the center that suggested looking into the space between universes. "Sweet mother of..." Reynolds breathed. "Carter, are you seeing this feed?" Major Carter's voice came through from her position 3 levels up, where she was fighting toward the rendezvous point. "Reading it now, Colonel. That's an active dimensional rift. Anubis has actually done it. He's opened a controlled breach to another reality. The energy readings are..." "Colonel, if that containment fails, it could consume the entire planet." Dr. Glassman's voice joined the channel from Infinity, where he was monitoring the operation and coordinating the extraction timing. "Captain Lasky needs to see this. Sir, Anubis's rift is larger and more stable than anything the ancients achieved according to their records. He's somehow improved on their designs. If we can get that data before we destroy the facility..." "Negative." Lasky's voice cut through, strained from coordinating the space battle. "Mission priorities remain unchanged. Extract the ZPM, destroy the facility, balance the resonance debt. We're not salvaging Anubis's research. We're making sure it can never be replicated." "Reynolds, how long to disconnect the ZPM?" The colonel was already moving toward the device, his engineering training allowing him to identify connection points and power couplings. 15 minutes minimum, Captain. These systems are integrated at levels I've never seen. One wrong move, and we could destabilize the containment. You have 12 minutes before security systems reactivate, Palmer reminded him. Make it work. Colonel. Reynolds began the delicate process of disconnecting a ZPM from an active dimensional rift, while reality itself watched through the tear in spacetime. His hands moved with practiced precision, but sweat beaded on his forehead as he worked. In orbit, Anubis had apparently tired of conventional tactics. The mothership's hangar bays opened, and a new type of craft began emerging, sleek, black vessels that didn't match any known Goa'uld design. They moved with impossible agility, and when they fired, their weapons carved through space with energy signatures that made Roland sensors scream warnings. Unknown craft, the AI reported urgently. Technology profile matches nothing in database. Energy weapons operating on principles I can't classify. Captain, I think those are ancient-derived fighters. When Anubis has been busy. The new fighters engaged the longswords, and the UNSC pilots immediately recognized they were outmatched. The ancient tech craft could accelerate faster, turn tighter, and their weapons penetrated longsword armor with terrifying efficiency. Longsword Alpha is down, came a transmission. These things are static. Bravo 3 taking fire. I can't shake. More static. Lasky watched the tactical display as his fighter squadrons took casualties they couldn't afford. All longswords, break off engagement and return to Infinity. We'll handle the fighters with point defense. Roland, bring the Guardian lasers online. Saturate the combat zone. Infinity's point defense systems activated, and the void filled with coherent light as dozens of laser emitters tracked and eliminated targets with mechanical precision. Ancient-derived fighters began exploding, but more kept coming. Anubis was throwing everything at them, and the system lord's voice suddenly boomed across all frequencies. Captain Lasky, I know what you attempt. Your teams infiltrate my facility, even as you distract me with this futile combat. Did you truly believe I would not detect their presence? I am a god. I know all that occurs within my domain. On level 14, alarms began shrieking. The 12 minutes were up, and the facility knew it had been compromised. He knows, Palmer shouted over the sudden cacophony. All teams, we are weapons-free. Forget stealth. This is full combat extraction. Reynolds, how much longer? 5 minutes, the colonel shouted back, his hands flying across ancient interfaces. The coupling is more complex than, damn it, Saturn, this wasn't designed to be disconnected while active. Coal warriors began flooding into level 14 from every entrance, dozens of them moving with coordinated precision that spoke to Anubis's direct control. The Spartans formed a defensive perimeter around Reynolds, their weapons firing in controlled bursts that chewed through ancient armor. But the warriors kept coming. SG-1 joined the defense, Jack's Goa'uld Disruptor taking down one super soldier after another, while Daniel and Teos provided covering fire. Carter worked frantically alongside Reynolds, her knowledge of ancient technology helping identify faster disconnection procedures. The Jaffa warriors under Bratak's command held the corridors leading to the chamber, their staff weapons creating walls of energy that forced the Goa'uld warriors to advance through sustained fire. Bodies, both Jaffa and Goa'uld, began piling up, turning the elegant ancient facility into a charnel house. 4 minutes, Reynolds called out. On Infinity's bridge, Anubis's mothership was pulling alongside at knife fight range, its weapons batteries opening up at point-blank distance. The shields were holding, but barely, and every hit drained power reserves they might need for the journey home. "Sir, we can't sustain this much longer," Roland reported. "Shield strength at 42% and dropping. If he hits us with that energy lance at this range..." "Then we don't give him the chance," Lasky interrupted. "Target his weapon systems with everything we have. Mac rounds, missiles, energy projectors. I want that lance destroyed before he can fire." Infinity's arsenal spoke as one voice. The concentrated firepower struck Anubis's mothership amidships, and for the first time, the system lord's vessel staggered. The ancient shields collapsed under the assault, and the energy lance installation shattered in a spectacular explosion that sent debris spinning through the void. But the victory was short-lived. Anubis's voice came through again, and this time it carried genuine fury. "You dare wound a god? You dare destroy my vessel? I will show you the price of such arrogance." The mothership began powering something new. Energy readings spiked across all spectrums, and the pyramid's peak began glowing with golden light that grew brighter and brighter. "He's charging a self-destruct," Thor's voice cut through from his ship in high orbit. "Captain Lasky, Anubis intends to detonate his mothership's power core in a catastrophic explosion. At this range, it will destroy Infinity and sterilize the planet's surface. You must withdraw immediately." But withdrawal meant abandoning the strike teams, meant leaving the ZPM, meant losing their only chance to go home. 3 minutes, Reynolds shouted, oblivious to the situation developing in orbit. Palmer made the call, Lasky couldn't. "All strike teams, emergency extraction. Takra, trigger your demolition charges now. We're leaving whether the ZPM is disconnected or not. Better to lose it than lose everyone." "Negative," Carter countermanded. "Sir, if we trigger the charges while the rift is active, the dimensional breach will destabilize. The explosion won't just destroy the facility, it'll tear a hole in reality that could consume the entire star system. We have to extract the ZPM first to properly collapse the rift." Lasky made his decision in the span of a heartbeat. "Roland, ram them." The AI's avatar flickered in surprise. "Sir?" "You heard me. Full emergency thrust. Ram Anubis's mothership before he can detonate. The explosion will destroy his ship, and ours will survive. We're bigger, we're tougher, and we've got better armor. Do it." "Captain, that's an order. Execute." Infinity's engines flared to maximum power, and the massive warship accelerated directly toward Anubis's mothership. The system lord apparently realized the tactic too late, his voice carrying shock across the communications channel. "No, you cannot! I am..." The impact was cataclysmic. 3.5 miles of UNSC warships struck the Goa'uld Pyramid at maximum velocity, and both ships screamed in protest as metal tore, shields collapsed, and ancient technology met modern engineering in catastrophic collision. Anubis's mothership crumpled, its self-destruct interrupted as critical systems failed. The explosion that could have destroyed a planet became a localized detonation that consumed the Goa'uld vessel, but left Infinity battered and reeling. On Infinity's bridge, every console sparked. The lights failed. Emergency systems kicked in, and Lasky found himself thrown against his command chair, feeling the ship shudder like a wounded animal. "Damage report," he managed. Roland's avatar flickered weakly. "Hull breaches on decks 1 through 7. Shields offline. Main engines offline. Weapon systems, mostly offline. But we're alive, Captain, and Anubis's ship is debris." On the planet below, the strike teams felt the impact through 17 levels of rock. "What the hell was that?" Palmer demanded. Captain Lasky just rammed a Goa'uld mothership. Glassman's voice came through, equal parts awe and horror. He's insane. Brilliant, but insane. 2 minutes, Reynolds called out, his final connections almost complete. The cool warriors were pressing harder now, their tactical programming recognizing that the defenders were running out of ammunition and stamina. 3 Spartans were down, their armor breached. Half the Jaffa were dead or dying, and the perimeter was collapsing. 1 minute, Palmer threw her last grenade, the explosion buying seconds they desperately needed. Shanur, 30 seconds. The ZPM came free with a crystalline chime that seemed impossibly delicate given the carnage surrounding it. Reynolds caught it, the device glowing with barely contained power in his arms. Got it! Extraction now! Thor's voice came through. Initiating beaming sequence. All personnel with friendly IFF transponders. Transport to your designated vessels in 3, 2, 1. White light filled level 14 as Asgard beaming technology activated. Personnel vanished in sequential flashes. First the wounded, then the defenders. Finally Reynolds clutching the ZPM like his life depended on it. Because it did. The last team members materialized aboard Infinity's transport bay just as the Tok'ra demolition charges detonated. 17 levels of research facility began collapsing. The dimensional rift losing containment as its power source vanished. The maelstrom of impossible colors began expanding, reality itself screaming as the breach grew unstable. Glassman, Lasky transmitted urgently. We need that rift controlled for the resonance balancing. Can you stabilize it long enough? The scientist's voice was strained. Maybe, if we can get the ZPM to the Bridge of Realities and activate the return sequence within the next 15 minutes, we might be able to designate this facility and the surrounding destabilized spacetime as the balancing mass. But Captain, you're in no condition to make the jump to hyperspace. Then we improvise, Lasky said grimly. Supreme Commander Thor, we need immediate transport to P7J-989. Huna, can you beam Infinity directly to the ancient outpost? A vessel of Infinity's mass? Thor sounded doubtful. The power requirements would be, Captain, I will attempt it, but you must understand, if this fails, your ship could materialize inside a planet or scattered across several light years. Better than staying here while reality collapses, Lasky replied. Do it. Thor's fleet moved into position, their beaming technology coordinating in a display of Asgard engineering that defied belief. In the UNSC Infinity, all 5.7 kilometers of her, battle-scarred and bleeding but unbowed, vanished from the Kalium system in a flash of light. They rematerialized in orbit around P7J-989, the ancient outpost visible on the planet's surface below. Glassman, Carter, you're up, Lasky transmitted. Get that ZPM installed and activate the bridge. We have one shot at this. The countdown had reached its final minutes. Reality itself held its breath, and across 2 universes, the barriers between worlds prepared to shift one final time. The Bridge of Realities hummed to life with a sound like reality singing. 3 zero-point modules, one freshly extracted from Anubis's facility, 2 others painstakingly salvaged from depleted ancient sites across the galaxy, fed power into systems that hadn't operated at full capacity in 50,000 years. Dr. Glassman and Major Carter worked side by side at the control console, their hands flying across ancient interfaces as they calibrated dimensional coordinates with precision measured in decimal points that stretched to infinity. Captain Lasky stood in the control chamber, watching his crew prepare for the journey home. Commander Palmer and her Spartans maintained security perimeter, their armor still bearing scorch marks from the facility assault. SG-1 clustered near the ancient displays, Daniel translating the flowing script while Jack watched the proceedings with his characteristic mix of skepticism and hope. Teal'c stood like a statue, his staff weapon held in ceremonial position, as if bearing witness to something that would echo through history. And in orbit above, the UNSC Infinity hung battered but defiant, her crew conducting emergency repairs even as they prepared for dimensional transit that might tear the ship apart or deliver them home. Power levels are stabilizing, Carter reported, her voice tight with concentration. ZPM integration is holding. The dimensional rift coordinates are locked. We're targeting your home reality based on the resonance signature recorded when you first arrived. But Captain, there's no guarantee we're targeting the exact right universe. Parallel realities exist in infinite variation. We could be off by fractions of dimensional frequency, meaning we might arrive in a universe almost like ours, but not quite? Lasky asked. Exactly. You might find an Earth where the UNSC lost the Covenant War, or where humanity never developed space travel, or where... We'll take that risk, Lasky interrupted gently. It's better than staying here knowing we don't belong. No offense to present company. Jack waved dismissively. None taken. I mean, you've been helpful and all. Saved Earth. Punched Anubis in his smug false god face. Proved that cooperation between realities is possible. But yeah, I get wanting to go home. We'd do the same. Glassman looked up from his calculations, his expression troubled. Captain, we have a problem with the resonance balancing. Doctor, Jackson's equations are clear. We need to designate equivalent mass energy to be removed from this reality when infinity transfers. The collapsing facility in the Kalium system represents significant mass, but the dimensional rift's destabilization is spreading faster than predicted. If we don't trigger the balance within the next 7 minutes, the rift will either collapse entirely, making it useless as balancing mass, or expand into full cascade that could consume multiple star systems. 7 minutes, Lasky repeated, his tactical mind calculating impossible timing. How long to complete Infinity's transfer sequence? 8 minutes minimum, Carter replied. The dimensional barriers are incredibly stable. Punching through requires sustained energy application. And we can't just snap our fingers and open a door between realities. Then we need to slow the rift's expansion while simultaneously accelerating our transfer, Lasky said. Glassman, is there any way to stabilize the Kalium rift remotely from here? Not remotely, no, but the scientist's eyes widened. Captain, if we could establish a sympathetic resonance between this facility's dimensional technology and the collapsing rift, we might be able to use one to control the other. It would require someone physically present at both locations, simultaneously feeding corrective harmonics through an Asgard beaming link, Thor's voice interrupted as the Supreme Commander materialized in the control chamber. Dr. Glassman, your hypothesis is sound. Turning, I can establish a sustained beaming connection that would allow real-time coordination between the two facilities. However, it would require an operator with ancient gene compatibility to interface with both systems, and the feedback through such connection would be intensely uncomfortable for any biological being. All eyes turned to Jack O'Neill. Oh, come on, Jack protested. I just got the last batch of ancient knowledge vacuumed out of my head 3 days ago. You want to hook me up to 2 ancient facilities simultaneously and use me as a living dimensional tuning fork? That's going to suck. Colonel O'Neill, I will monitor your neural patterns and extract you the moment the process completes, Thor assured him. Your participation would be voluntary, but I calculate it increases mission success probability from 17% to 63%. 63%, Jack repeated. Those are almost coin flip odds. Carter, tell me there's another way. Carter's expression was apologetic. Sir, you're the only person here with demonstrated ancient gene compatibility strong enough to interface with both facilities. I could try, but my artificial gene therapy isn't as robust as your natural expression. If the connection fails mid-transfer, everyone dies horribly across multiple realities, Jack finished. Yeah, I got it. Fine. But you people owe me so much beer after this. Like an unreasonable amount of beer. Teal'c, you're buying. Indeed, O'Neill, the Jaffa replied with the faintest suggestion of a smile. It would be my honor. Jack approached the ancient console, now placing his hands on the crystalline interface. Okay, Thor, hook me up to your dimensional tuning fork setup. And if my brain melts, tell everyone I died doing something way cooler than this actually is. Thor's beaming technology activated, and suddenly Jack existed in 2 places simultaneously, his physical body at P7J-989, interfacing with the Bridge of Realities, while his consciousness extended across light years to the collapsing facility in the Kalium system. The sensation was indescribable. Being pulled in 2 directions while somehow remaining whole, perceiving 2 locations through eyes that shouldn't be able to process such information. I hate ancient technology so much right now, Jack managed through gritted teeth. Colonel, you need to synchronize the harmonic frequencies, Glassman instructed, feeding him calculations. The collapsing rift is oscillating at 47.3 terahertz. The bridge is operating at 51.6 terahertz. If you can modulate the rift's frequency to match the bridge's output, I have no idea what you just said, but my brain is doing it anyway, Jack replied, his ancient enhanced consciousness manipulating forces that existed between the mathematical definitions of reality. This is deeply weird. I can see the rift. It's angry, like it knows it's not supposed to exist and it's throwing a cosmic tantrum. And there are things on the other side looking through, things that make the Goa'uld look friendly. Don't let them through, Daniel said urgently. Jack, the ancients sealed this research because entities in the dimensional void are attracted to rifts. If anything crosses over, yeah, and I figured that out when one of them tried to reach through and I had to slam the door in its metaphysical face, Jack snapped. Can we speed this up? Because every second I'm connected to this thing, I can feel more of them gathering. They know someone's opening doors and they want in. Lasky activated his comm to Infinity. Roland, status on ship's readiness for dimensional transfer? The AI's avatar appeared in holographic form, his usual composed demeanor strained. Captain, we're as ready as we'll ever be. Hull breaches are sealed. Emergency powers online, and the crew is strapped in for what I sincerely hope isn't our last jump. But sir, I need you to understand. We're attempting dimensional transit with a heavily damaged ship using ancient technology we barely understand. The probability of catastrophic failure is... I don't want to hear statistics, Roland, Lasky interrupted. I want to hear that you'll get my crew home. The AI was silent for a moment. I'll get them home, Captain, or die trying, which, given that I'm a digitally actualized consciousness, would be particularly tragic. That's the spirit. Initiate transfer sequence on Dr. Glassman's mark. Glassman's hands moved across the ancient console, the ZPMs feeding enormous power into systems designed to tear holes between universes. Transfer sequence initiating. Dimensional barriers are weakening. I'm reading coherence formation. The path is opening. Captain, you need to get to Infinity now. Once the transfer begins, anyone not aboard won't make the jump. Lasky looked at the assembled allies, SG-1, Supreme Commander Thor, many of the Takra operatives who'd risked everything to make this possible. General Hammond, are you monitoring from Stargate Command? The general's voice came through clearly. I am, Captain, and I want to say, on behalf of Earth and everyone who calls this reality home, thank you. You didn't owe us anything, but you stood with us anyway. That's something we won't forget. Thank you, General, for giving us a chance when you had every reason to be suspicious, for trusting us with your secrets and your technology, for fighting alongside us like we were part of your family. Lasky paused, choosing his next words carefully. If we make it home, we'll remember this. We'll remember that in another reality, humanity is fighting impossible odds with courage and determination. And if we ever find a way to bridge realities intentionally, we'll come back. We'll bring the full might of the UNSC and show the Goa'uld what happens when two humanities stand together. We'll hold you to that, Captain, Hammond replied. Now get your people home. Lasky turned to Thor. Supreme Commander, your people saved us more than once. The Asgard are proof that advanced technology doesn't require losing compassion or honor. We'll carry that lesson home. And you, Captain Lasky, have shown the Asgard that humans, regardless of what reality they originate from, possess the potential for greatness we first recognized in the Tauri, Thor replied. Farewell, Captain. May your journey be safe. To SG-1, Lasky simply nodded. Colonel O'Neill, when you're done being a dimensional tuning fork, tell your team they're the finest warriors I've had the privilege to fight alongside. Major Carter, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Dr. Jackson, never stop asking questions. Teal'c, freedom suits you. Wear it well. Indeed, Teal'c replied, inclining his head with deep respect. Fight well, Captain Lasky. Die well when your time comes. It is all any warrior can ask. Touching moment happening here, Jack grunted, his body trembling from the strain of maintaining the dimensional connection. But can we save the speeches and get on with the reality jumping? Because these void entities are getting really pushy, And I'd like to not accidentally let cosmic horrors into our dimension. Asgard beaming standing by, Thor confirmed. Captain, you will materialize aboard Infinity in 3 seconds. Colonel O'Neill, you will be extracted to the Daniel Jackson for medical monitoring the moment the transfer completes. White light enveloped Lasky, and reality shifted. He materialized on Infinity's bridge, where his crew stood at their stations, looking both terrified and determined. All hands, this is the captain, Lasky transmitted shipwide. In approximately 3 minutes, we're going home. It's going to be rough. Systems might fail. We might arrive someplace unexpected. But we're going together as a crew, and we're going to make it. Because that's what the UNSC Infinity does. We face impossible odds and we survive. Brace for dimensional transit. 17,000 voices answered with acknowledgement, their faith in their captain absolute. On the planet below, the bridge of realities reached critical power threshold. The dimensional barriers between realities began to tear, creating a pathway that existed in all dimensions and none simultaneously. Through that impossible corridor, another Earth became visible, one where UNSC shipyards orbited, where humanity had spread across hundreds of worlds, where the Covenant War was a memory rather than an ongoing threat. Home. Transfer window is open, Glassman transmitted. 60 seconds of stability, then it collapses. Infinity. Go now. The UNSC warship's emergency thrusters fired, pushing her through the dimensional rift like a bullet through paper. The journey was instantaneous and eternal, a sensation of falling through colors that had no names and spaces that shouldn't exist. Reality screamed. Physics wept. And somewhere in the void between universes, foreign entities ancient and hungry reached for the massive ship crossing their domain. But Jack O'Neill, his consciousness stretched across light years and dimensions, stood as guardian at the threshold. His ancient enhanced awareness recognized the void entities for what they were, cosmic predators that fed on dimensional energy. And with the full power of the bridge of realities behind him, he slammed the door in their metaphysical faces. The collapsing facility in the Kaliam system detonated in a cascade of dimensional energy. 17 levels of ancient technology and Goa'uld research vanished into the rift, pulled through as the balancing mass that physics demanded. The resonance debt was paid, the equation balanced, and across 2 realities. The barriers between worlds sealed shut with finality that suggested they wouldn't open again for millennia. Infinity emerged into normal space above an Earth that her crew recognized. UNSC defense platform, Cairo, hung in orbit, its MAC batteries tracking the sudden contact before IFF transponders registered the impossible. The ship they declared lost in a dimensional accident had just reappeared. UNSC Infinity, this is Cairo Station Traffic Control, came a startled voice. You are broadcasting active transponder codes for a vessel reported lost 3 weeks ago. Please confirm your identity and prepare to receive inspection teams. Cairo Station, this is Captain Thomas Lasky aboard UNSC Infinity, Lasky replied, his voice carrying relief so profound it was almost painful. Confirm identity, request priority channel to FleetCom. When we have significant intelligence to report regarding dimensional phenomena, cross-reality contact, and technology that could reshape humanity's strategic position. Also requesting immediate medical support. We have casualties from combat operations. Captain Lasky? The traffic controller's voice cracked with emotion. Sir, everyone thought we held memorial services. How are you? Never mind. Stand by for FleetCom connection. And sir, welcome home. On Infinity's bridge, the crew erupted in cheers. 3 weeks. They'd been gone 3 weeks in their home reality while experiencing several intense days in the Stargate universe. The temporal displacement was another mystery to solve, but right now Lasky didn't care. They were home. Palmer's helmet retracted, revealing a smile that Lasky had rarely seen on the disciplined Spartan's face. Captain, we actually did it. We fought false gods, stole ancient technology, balanced cosmic equations, and jumped between realities. And we're home. We did, Lasky agreed, but we didn't do it alone. We had allies from another reality who risked everything to help us. We owe them, Commander, and someday if we can figure out how to safely bridge realities again, we're going to pay that debt. Roland's avatar materialized, looking more exhausted than an AI should be capable of appearing. "Captain, I've completed damage assessment. We're going to need extensive repairs. But we made it. Against impossible odds with technology we barely understood, facing enemies we'd never encountered before. We made it home. I've calculated the probability of our survival. And sir, it should have been 0. But here we are." "Here we are," Lasky echoed, looking at the Earth rotating slowly beneath them. His Earth, his reality, home. In another universe, SG-1 stood in the ancient facility, watching the dimensional rift seal shut. Jack O'Neill collapsed as Thor extracted him from the connection, the Asgard's medical technology immediately working to repair neurological damage from channeling forces that mortal minds weren't meant to touch. "Is he going to be okay?" Daniel asked worriedly. "Colonel O'Neill's neural patterns are stabilizing," Thor confirmed. "He will require rest, but he will recover. And I believe this may be the last time he can safely interface with ancient technology. His brain has been pushed to its absolute limits." "Good," Jack mumbled from where he lay on the floor. "Because I am officially retiring from the dimensional tuning fork business. Someone else can be the cosmic antenna next time." Carter was studying the now dormant Bridge of Realities, her scientific mind already cataloging everything they'd learned. "Sir, we did it. We sent them home. And in the process, we stopped Anubis from weaponizing dimensional travel, destroyed his research facility, and proved that cooperation across realities is possible. This is going to change everything." "It already has, Major." Hammond's voice came through from Stargate Command. "The intelligence we gained from working with Infinity's crew, the technology exchanges, the tactical data, it's going to take years to fully analyze. But more importantly, we've proven something that I think matters more than any technological advantage. That humanity, regardless of what reality we come from, shares fundamental values. Courage, honor, its willingness to sacrifice for others." Teal'c stood at the facility entrance, looking up at the alien sky. "The UNSC Infinity has returned to its home, but the legend of the ship from another reality that stood with Earth against false gods will endure. The Free Jaffa will tell this story for generations. How warriors from beyond our world proved that freedom is worth fighting for, no matter the cost." "Think they'll remember us?" Jack asked from the floor. "I think we'll remember them," Daniel replied quietly. "And maybe someday we'll find a way to see them again. The ancients built the Bridge of Realities for a reason. They believed understanding other realities could teach us about our own. Captain Lasky and his crew proved that theory. They showed us that even across dimensional barriers, humanity recognizes itself." In the days that followed, both realities began processing what had occurred. The UNSC analyzed ancient technology principles and started theoretical research into controlled dimensional travel. Stargate Command integrated lessons learned from UNSC tactics and began developing more aggressive approaches to combating Goa'uld forces. The Free Jaffa Rebellion, inspired by the story of warriors from another reality who fought for Earth's freedom, grew in strength and determination. And on both Earths, people looked at the stars and wondered about the infinite variations of reality that might exist beyond their own. Worlds where humanity had taken different paths, faced different challenges, but remained recognizably human in the ways that mattered most. Captain Thomas Lasky stood in his quarters aboard Infinity 3 days after their return, reading reports from ONI debriefings and FleetCom strategic assessments. The story of what had happened was classified at the highest levels, but whispers were spreading through the fleet, the ship that vanished, the alternate reality, the war against false gods. A message notification appeared on his console. Encrypted, source unknown. He opened it cautiously. The message was text only, but the signature was unmistakable. SG-1, Stargate Command, reality designation, unknown but friendly. Captain Lasky, don't ask us how we're sending this. Let's just say Dr. Carter and Dr. Glassman left each other some parting gifts in terms of dimensional communication theory, and we may have figured out how to punch a very small data packet through the barriers between realities. Can't do it often. Power requirements are absurd. But we wanted you to know we're still here, still fighting, and still grateful for what you did. Anubis survived the facility's destruction, but he's weakened. The Free Jaffa Rebellion is gaining ground, And the Takra say their intelligence networks are reporting that system lords across the galaxy are reconsidering their assumptions about Earth's capabilities. Your presence, even briefly, changed the strategic landscape. We learned a lot from you, about courage under impossible odds, about standing up for what's right even when you have every excuse to walk away, about the kind of warriors humanity can produce when we're pushed to our limits and refuse to break. If you ever figure out how to safely bridge realities again, you've got allies waiting. Until then, we'll keep fighting our war, and we hope you're at peace in yours. Fair winds and following seas, Captain. Colonel Jack O'Neill, on behalf of SG-1 and all of Stargate Command PS. Carter says the dimensional math you worked out with Glassman is revolutionary. Jackson says the cultural exchange implications are staggering. Teal'c says indeed. And I say you owe us a beer if we ever meet again. Thor says the Asgard would be honored to host such meeting, assuming we solve the whole crossing between realities without dying problem. PPS, we name the next BC-304 after your ship. The USAF Infinity launches next year. Seemed appropriate. Lasky read the message 3 times, then encrypted it in his personal files. Someday, when the technology existed and the risk could be managed, humanity would bridge realities again. And when that day came, the UNSC would return to stand alongside Earth's defenders in that other universe. Because that's what allies did. That's what warriors who'd fought together did. That's what humanity across all realities did. The UNSC Infinity had found its way home. But in doing so, it had forged bonds that transcended dimensional barriers and proven that some things, courage, honor, loyalty, and the willingness to stand against impossible odds, remained constant across every variation of reality. The mission was complete. The journey was over. But the legend in 2 realities had only just begun. The UNSC Infinity's accidental journey into the Stargate universe became legend in both realities. A story of warriors from different worlds standing together against tyranny and impossible odds. Captain Lasky had brought his crew home, but they carried with them knowledge of another Earth, another humanity fighting its own desperate war for survival. The ancient technology they'd encountered, the allies they'd made, and the dimensional principles they'd discovered would shape UNSC research for decades to come. In the Stargate reality, Earth's defenders had gained tactical knowledge, technological insights, and proof that even across the barriers between universes, humanity remained fundamentally united by shared values. The defeat of Anubis's dimensional research prevented catastrophe that could have reshaped the galaxy. The Free Jaffa Rebellion, inspired by warriors from beyond reality who fought for freedom, would eventually succeed in overthrowing the Goa'uld Empire. And on quiet nights, personnel in both realities would look at the stars and remember. They had allies in dimensions beyond reach, friends who'd stood shoulder to shoulder against false gods and cosmic horrors. The barriers between realities remained sealed, but the bonds forged in battle transcended such limitations. Captain Thomas Lasky filed his final report on the dimensional incident, knowing that somewhere in the infinite variations of existence, Colonel Jack O'Neill was probably doing the same. 2 commanders from different realities, united by the experience of proving that courage, honor, and humanity's refusal to surrender remained constant across every universe. When the UNSC Infinity had gone home, but the alliance, theoretical, impossible, yet undeniably real, endured. And in both realities, researchers quietly continued exploring dimensional theory, driven by the knowledge that the barriers could be bridged safely someday, that allies separated by the very fabric of reality itself might stand together again. Because that's what the encounter had proven, that humanity, in all its infinite variations, recognized itself across any distance, even the distance between worlds.